Hello, everyone. This is Andres Restart, and this week we are talking about Nintendo. I know we didn't do a live stream last week, but we're back at it, and this time we have a special guest, good friend of mine, Paul Gale from Paul Gale Network. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you, and I'm doing relatively well. I am enjoying the calm before the storm, given that I'm here in South Florida.
Right. It's a gale force outside.
Hey, there you go. Perhaps a network of games.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we're going to be very punny today, aren't we? Or tonight? Yeah. That we're already
Get the puns
like
flowing.
3 puns going. The title of the stream is a pun. So prepare for more. But we also got this guy over here in the top right, Brandon. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Just took a day off work because I kind of make my own schedule with the work I do right now. So I took a day off, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna clean everything in my car and in my house, and I'm gonna actually unpack. For people, I don't know how much I've even mentioned this publicly, but I moved last month to a new place. I think I mentioned on the podcast when I moved in the first week I was on after, but I had never set it up, so I've been taking the time to like take everything out of the boxes and like find a place for it and hang up my posters and stuff, get everything set up, get all my books out of the boxes. So it's been nice. I got some pictures on my Twitter if anybody cares. You can see that.
Brandon's Twitter is linked in the description below, as is Paul's socials, his website, his Twitter, his YouTube. It's all there. Make sure to check out these fellows. But we got a lot to talk about tonight. I mean, I don't necessarily have a plan. I know I do know what we all want to discuss, right? We are going to talk about Nintendo Switch 2. We are going to talk about a Nintendo Direct. Like, that's definitely going to be kind of like our focal point. But especially because I didn't go live last week, there are other things that I would like to discuss. I think they make sense. I did technically write out a few topics here. One being Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends ZA being excluded from the Golden Joystick Awards. What's up with that? Like, these are the 2 most wanted games of the year for Nintendo fans, but neither are in the most wanted section, but there are a whole bunch of indie games that are. I think that's a load of baloney. So that's why I made the video on it today. So I think we'll talk about that. There's just a neat Pokemon rumor I saw on Twitter. I kind of want to read it off to you guys and see what you think. I don't know if it sounds good. It just sounds good. Is there any reason to believe it? No, but like, it sounds good. Also, we'll be discussing some. I haven't actually read all the details yet, so maybe you guys will be able to add some other elements. But we have heard that they are putting together a specific R&D team for Monolith Soft, so they are going to actually be overhauling their engine for Xenoblade, and so that's a very nice sign. I haven't dug deep into it yet, but we'll talk about that as well. As I mentioned, the Nintendo Direct stuff. I haven't told you guys my thoughts on Echoes of Wisdom yet, so I think that's a little bit of an interesting topic. I keep saying I'm almost done with the game, but I'm close.
Nice.
I'm close, but I don't know if I'm not so close that there will be a theory video tomorrow unless I stay up all night. But I've been trying to fix my sleep schedule, so I don't know.
Right.
And
how many hours are you? Not to cut you off, but do you know how many?
I haven't even counted, man. I don't know. The thing is, I haven't tried to play quick either, right? I mess, especially at the beginning of the game, I just mess around as much as possible first.
Right.
So that definitely inflates my hour count. But I will tell you this: last night I made sure to clear out all the extra rifts, the optional ones, and so 80% of Hyrule's completely clean. The only thing that's left is I haven't explored the top left of the map yet, the Elden volcano region. So that's pretty much all I have left to kind of fully explore. What happens after I finish this wave of dungeons, I will see. But I finished the Korok dungeon last night. So anyway, yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Echoes of Wisdom. And I also feel like it's worth mentioning that it looks like Nash Weedle's leak about Virtual Boy stuff has been proven true. So that's another interesting conversation, I would say. So considering all that, I feel like we actually have a lot to discuss, and none of that necessarily includes what we all want to talk about, which is the Switch 2, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got a lot to get into today. But before we do that, I would like to check in with the chat. If you all could let me know how everything is looking and sounding, I would very much appreciate that. And yeah, let me just check in and see how you all are doing. By the way, I guess I'll just state what my intent is. So I know some of you miss me being on the Nintendo Prime's podcast. Apparently, people think that we had a falling out. We didn't have a falling out. I just have a life. Right. I just have things to do, right? So like I committed to be on Nate's like show for a pretty long time, but the thing is, with where I'm at in life right now, I just kind of need to focus on my career and life stuff. I might have to move soon, and it's just time stuff. However, I will be on the show tomorrow, assuming I don't lose power from the storm. And because I didn't make a bet with anyone, right? But I don't know. I guess in solidarity or in stupidity, like, you know, I did predict a September 19th reveal for Switch 2. Never promised. I don't know why people say, oh, you said this was that. No, I didn't. I said that's what I think. And if you go back and watch every single video, but, you know, I could be wrong. Maybe it's in October. Maybe it's next year. This is what I think based off the information we have. But anyways, I was wrong. My prediction was September 19th for the reveal. Didn't happen. I didn't make a bet. But like I said, I guess in solidarity and also in stupidity, I also purchased a Hot Chip Challenge. And I may.
Oh no!
I don't want to make any promises because I think apparently this is a lot worse than I thought. Like,
yeah.
I just like, oh sure, whatever, I'll get one. I like.
Oh no, those are
food.
bad.
Apparently it's really bad. I'm kind of scared. I don't know if I'm even promising that I'm gonna do this, but I guess I'll at least try a little piece and then I'll see how I feel about it.
I would definitely not just be like, yeah, I'll eat the whole chip. Let's go.
Wow. Yeah. A small piece might turn you off.
The what?
A small piece might turn you off, though. You might be like, oh, heck no.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I think you're going to eat a small piece and be like, oh, God, thank goodness I didn't eat this whole thing.
I don't know, man. I don't know. So maybe I'll just snack on it throughout the night. I'll just take little
just
bits.
Suffer the whole day.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't want to make any promises, but like Nate was like messaging me about it, and I just on a whim just said sure. And then I was like, oh, what have I gotten myself into? Thank God we haven't announced this publicly. But here I am now stating that I am going to do this publicly tomorrow on his stream. I might co-stream it. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's happening. And probably gonna regret it. Anyway, on to the chat. Let's see here. Tyler J. Wolf, will we see Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Deluxe get announced for all Nintendo Switch systems, including upcoming Nintendo Switch 2? I'm gonna say I do not think that a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Deluxe will come to Switch 1. Whatever is the next Smash Bros. Offering will be just for Switch 2. To me, that feels like a pretty safe bet. I don't know if they're going to go in the deluxe route, but whatever it is for the next Smash Brothers, I don't expect anything more for Switch 1. What do you guys think?
I kind of doubt that they will not enhance the content, at least if they... Because obviously, Smash typically reuses at least some content for the next game in some way, whether it's the same stage, but, you know, a new design or something. But with Smash Wii U to Ultimate, there was some reusing of stuff, but even then they touched up pretty much everything that was brought over. So a lot of things very significantly, like the stages are like way better looking, and have a lot more detail and stuff, and some of them were completely redesigned. So I would be kind of doubtful if at the very least I'd be disappointed if the next Smash comes out and it's just like, oh, here's Smash Ultimate but with some more content. I'd be like, oh, that's not really a new Smash though. So I'm hoping at least that we don't get like just a Smash Ultimate Deluxe, and like that's the Smash for Switch 2. What do you mean? Why are you disappointed?
You know, with one of Nintendo's other super popular games, in fact, their most popular one, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, they did have a version which included that Booster Course DLC, you know, in the cartridge, in which I think at the time that one came out, Wave 6 DLC didn't come out, but they did release like a bundle. So is it possible, if I'm not mistaken, is it possible that they have a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Game of the Year edition, deluxe edition, something like that on Nintendo Switch? Maybe, but that's also giving a lot of content away, like quite a good value that they could resell again or resell it as a Nintendo Switch 2 version. I think that one's the one that's more likely is having this attractive look that is known about, that it's giving you, you know, well beyond $60 worth of value, you know, $100+ worth of value in one game. And it also allows Nintendo to resell it probably without having to go through too many hoops of upping all of these new contracts with Konami and Sega and Capcom and Square Enix and all of these other licenses that they got to be a part of this game and have all the musics over again, because it's not a new game, it's a repackaged game. And as long as it's not too many new things added and just maybe up-resed, or what do they have to not do? You know what I mean? Like, is adding new levels and then new characters, like what if the game comes out on Nintendo Switch 2 and it's got a couple of new characters? Is that too much? Or does that constitute as, nope, it's the same game, it just ported? How much could they get away with? There's a lot. I think
they would just consider it the same game with like more DLC.
Yeah, and if
I don't think DLC, it would be considered a new game.
If this hypothetical DLC that has, let's say Noah and Mio from Xenoblade Chronicles 3, or Emio, right?
Or Silex.
Emio would be crazy. Like that. If they would be in it, just by chance, surely they would have to come out on a Nintendo Switch version, right? Or not.
I think
Deluxe
one is
battle
done.
Mode didn't, you know, get ported back to the Wii U, but then again, the Wii U was dead, so different situation.
We haven't gotten any DLC for a while. 2023, the last DLC pass was for Fire Emblem, if I'm not mistaken. We did have the update for Switch Sports. That was a free update, though. There hasn't been any paid DLC passes since Fire Emblem Engage early last year. Look, you look at all the major Nintendo games that have come out. Tears of the Kingdom, nothing. Pikmin 4, nothing. Mario Wonder, nothing. This year, I mean, nothing's been announced, but also the kind of games we're getting probably aren't going to get DLC. Like, I mean, maybe Jamboree, but I feel like that won't be announced until Switch 2. So I guess where I'm coming from is I think Nintendo's moving on, right? Like, there's going to be some little things for Switch 1 and backwards compatibility and all that stuff, but just focusing on Smash Brothers, like with that in mind, like I think we're done. Like, Smash Brothers is what it is, which is a lot. I still play Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers might be my most played game because of Smash Brothers. But my take on the future of Smash Brothers, they can do a deluxe, I'll buy it. They can do a brand new thing, I'll buy it. They can do something in between, I will buy it. What I care about is that Pyra and Mithra stay in Smash Brothers. They're my favorite characters. I do not want them to leave the roster. I want them to be there forever. I mean, really, I'm gonna be no matter what happens. I mean, I'm sure I'll still ultimately enjoy the game, but there's gonna be at least some level of disappointment if we get to the next Smash Brothers and there's even some level of cut content. Like, I think they have the ultimate roster, and I just kind of think, well, continue, just add more. Like, and there are things you can do. I mean, it sounds like I know it's hard, right? But also every time a new Smash Bros. Game comes out, it's this incredibly difficult thing that they somehow find a way to build upon it, right? I think one thing they can do to make Smash Bros. Feel new is just basically offer new modes. Modes. Give us a single player experience that really stands on its own, in conjunction with a few more characters, a few more stages, and a few new modes. And I think a lot of people will be happy with that. You want to call that deluxe? I'm buying it. I'll Smash at 4K with better visuals and more stuff to do, like, and also better online because the online sucks right now. Like that would, I'm all for it. So I'm not gonna leave the chat yet, right? But I came up with an idea because I wasn't sure which topic to do, and this would be kind of fun for me, I guess. I got 6 topics, right? I'm not telling you the order of them, okay? I am intentionally jumbling it around. So if you're even trying to remember like how I listed them off earlier, I've jumbled them around. There are 6 topics, and so 1 through 6, I want you all to just start putting numbers 1 through 6 of, and whatever I see more of for a particular number within the next couple of minutes, that will be our first topic, and we're going to do that until we clean out all 6 topics. One of them is the Switch 2 topic, right? Which I think is what most people want to do. But, I mean, all this is, I think, interesting Nintendo stuff. So it's all there. Let's have fun with it. We'll see what happens. Anyway, as I see those numbers, maybe if I see a lot, maybe next time I'll put it to a poll. But just scrolling through here, Connor adds, I hope we get to see Waluigi and Bandana Waddle Dee in the next Smash Bros. Game. Those are popular picks.
They don't excite me at all, but they're very popular.
Yo, I see a lot of 4s. What's funny is that I'm not gonna say it yet. I'm giving her a moment. I'm gonna give another moment. All right. I'm just scrolling through. I wanted to find another interesting talking point from the chat.
I hope that when the 3 of you are doing the hot chip challenge tomorrow, that in that moment Nintendo drops. Stay tuned tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. PT.
I hope so too.
Dude, that would be hype.
So you can quickly midway through do a reaction video to that announcement and then clip that segment. Part of unique portion.
Part of me doesn't want it to happen this week because there's a storm and there's a small chance I lose power, so I won't be able to cover it. I think I'll be fine though, to be honest with you, because I'm in Miami, so I'm not going to get hit. Like, we're going to get maybe tropical storm level winds, which is not great, and there's going to be a lot of rain, but it's not going to be like category 3. Like Tampa is like really it's where it's going to get hit hard. But like there are just certain topics I want to cover before the reveal at this point. Like I want to talk about Echoes of Wisdom, and I feel like what's going to happen though is if they reveal the Switch 2 this week, like that's going to be the priority, right? Like what if they show something Zelda in there, right? Or we get like new Metroid Prime 4 footage, like, or Mario, like there's going to be all these different things I'm going to have to focus on. And I don't know, like I'll come back to Echoes of Wisdom, but I kind of rather that have a little spotlight before the Switch 2 explosion, if that makes any sense, from just a me personally covering stuff perspective. But whatever happens, and I'm just going to figure it out afterwards. So, but anyways, let's see what numbers we're seeing. If you guys look in the chat, what do you think is more prevalent? I'm seeing I got 3 4s, 2 6s, 4. I want to say it's 4, and 6 is at second place.
I think so.
All right. Well, you guys are going to be upset because 4 was initially the Switch 2 topic, but because I jumbled them, it is no more. And it's this neat Pokemon rumor, right? This is like, again, I don't even think this is like legit. I just think that, wow, this sounds really good. Like if this is what, it's well thought out is what I think. But let me just share it. We'll talk about it for a couple of minutes. We'll hear what you guys have to say, and then we'll move on. Okay, I got that up. Let's see here. All right. Okay. So, Pokemon Daily News. Huge new leaks. Rumors for Pokemon Legends Z. Story spoilers. Do we want... I'm not going to read through the entire thing in case it's real. It's probably not. But I guess I'll just talk about the gameplay structure, right? So, unlike what's being speculated, the game takes place in the present day, set a few years after X and Y, which is very interesting and might actually kind of explain why we see this modern day blueprint in the trailer. The starters are Chespin, Fennekin, and Froakie again. However, their final stages receive mega evolutions. Okay. You play as new characters named Andrew and Dilla, who are assistants to Professor Sycamore. They eventually join the redevelopment team, Quasar. Quasar is led by a man named Rico, who has the vision of a new Kalos where people and Pokemon can coexist together. See, this is where I kind of feel like it's maybe a little bit of a red flag because, like, don't they already coexist? So that's one little oddity. But this plans to expand Lumio City from its original size and install artificial biomes around the city, similar to the terrarium from the Indigo Disc. And I saw this and like, yes, if this is what they do, I would love that because I loved the Indigo Disc from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Like, if you just want to have like a more expansive city, but there are also natural biomes to explore for different like regions, I think that would actually be really cool. Which actually feels somewhat like Legends Arceus, where you had the city, and then there were 5 different areas of Sinnoh to explore. At the time, it was called Hisui. But the game is set entirely in Lumio City, as previously stated, but that also includes 5 different areas surrounding the city, which consists of a forest, swamp, desert, coast, and snowy forest. The player's stats to go these areas. It's very like Legends-like. Oh, well, this is interesting. Lastly, there are 5 road Pokemon, which consists of Go-Goat for land, Noivern for flight. I love Noivern. Lapras for swimming. That's pretty cliche, but still cool. Rhyhorn for smashing rocks, and Mamoswine for ice travel. Riding Mamoswines in a blizzard would actually be pretty epic. And I saw that they have a list of Mega Evolutions here, but the one I had to make sure, Mega Flygon. And I was like, all right, this is fake. Flygon is never going to get a Mega Evolution. He's been waiting too long. And yeah, I don't want to read this whole thing, right? But that's kind of like, just a neat Pokemon rumor. Does any of that even remotely intrigue you guys?
The fact that it takes place after X and Y is the coolest part, in my opinion, just because probably X and Y are my favorite Pokemon games, like beyond the original, what we got in North America as Red and Blue, and then maybe, Gold and Silver, because I was working at a video game store at the launch of those, so that's a very memorable time of me working there and being a part of this mega release and stuff like that October-ish 2000 timeframe. X and Y is probably my favorite until Arceus. So if this takes place within that X and Y world and then has a lot of what Arceus offers, which it looks like it might, and with extra biomes on the outside and connecting, should be cool. Is it true what they have, or are they close to it? If they're making it up, we don't know. But that is a game in general I'm looking forward to next year, and the fact that we didn't have a Nintendo Direct in September is just that much more evidence that I don't think that's a first 3 months of the year kind of game, which makes me also think it might be this, co-launch with Nintendo Switch 2 and Nintendo Switch and have a version, which is kind of where I'm at with, I have been with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond with that.
Right.
It's been a long time, but
yeah.
Anyways, yeah. Well.
Yeah, it seems interesting, but really I want to see the game. Like, as somebody who's always been like interested for Pokemon from like an outsider perspective, but never like got into any of the games I tried, I'm just really waiting for like an actually really polished Pokemon experience on Switch, or if I have to play the Switch 2 version to get that, the Switch 2. So like, these all sound like nice things, but for me personally, I'm just like, I just want to see how polished the experience looks when I see the different trailers and stuff. It's like, is this going to be like a very polished game, or is it going to be more of a mess? Like, is this something that's going to be polished enough for people like, okay, this is the time for me to really get into Pokemon? And that's what I'm hoping for.
Say, hey,
Yeah.
Pokemon Company, check out Monolith Soft. Monolith
Right.
Soft. You want to take on Pokemon? Oh, dang. Having a
Just
party
help their
of
tech
4
team.
characters running around, kind of like you would tag team someone off the internet from your friends list could join in and be live one of those people in your party, and like the list goes on and on. I think Monolith would absolutely make it
I
epic.
do assume ZA is going to have like full multiplayer support, like the
Well, Arceus did.
latest. Well, yeah, that's
Just
fair.
a swap, right? Arceus only had the ability to trade. That was the extent of the multiplayer in the game.
But that doesn't mean ZA won't, right? And if ZA is the only
Right.
Pokemon game coming out next year, maybe they want to have some multiplayer in there.
Yeah.
It does seem like they're spending a little bit more time on it too, so that may speak to the polish standpoint as well. So I mean,
But
I'm
the
very
latest
eager for this
game, the latest gen is the first time that you can actually just play online, like for the whole content. There's no like run around everywhere, right?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? My brain was.
The latest gen that came out, it's the first gen that you can actually, or the
It's
first
the first
game for
full
Pokemon that you
open
can.
world Pokemon
Yeah.
game.
But no, I mean like for online though, like it's
Well,
because in Sword and Shield you could only go online like in very specific
in the
like
wild
the
areas,
right?
in the wild areas, which are somewhat expansive, but yeah.
So I would hope
Scarlet
with
and Violet's
the
pretty much
online
full map.
precedent of the new gen, we would get at least some online with this game. But you know, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if they just pretty much like bring that into the game, I think they theoretically can. Scarlet and Violet ran like doo-doo, so there's some of that.
Yeah, but I don't know if the online still.
I think that's more of an optimization issue, right? I don't think it's impossible or anything like that. We'll see. But I don't know. Just in terms of the rumor, like I really like the concept of there's a big city, but there's also like these big like habitats that are very Pokemon-y, right? Like it's not all. I don't want it to be all city because
for sure that is.
Where
good
do you
to
find
hear.
wild Pokemon? Like you could find some, but I don't know. It just makes sense. Like I think it's like a nice logical step that they are expanding a city that is going to be cool, but to have these other natural habitats that are surrounding the city on the outskirts, I think that would make it feel like a more proper Legends game. But as some of you may be noticing, I put a poll asking for the third topic. But where's the second topic? Well, I realized I could only put 4 options in the poll, so I was like, I still have 5 topics left. So I'm just gonna pick the second topic and let you guys decide the third topic. Which means that the second topic is Xenoblade. The Xenoblade devs are going ham, which is tangentially related to the Nintendo Switch 2, because if they are building, if they put together this dedicated R&D team to completely I guess rework their engine to make it something completely new and really overhaul it, right, was the word I was looking for. Like that is exciting, right? Not too long ago we heard about them already putting a new hiring post for a new RPG, and there was mention of open world. Like that also sounds exciting. And what's also interesting is that we go back to their website, like the listing that they had for a new IP that's been up there since the beginning of the Switch generation is gone now. And it was replaced with a new RPG thing that we all think is probably the next Xenoblade game. And now we're hearing about this R&D effort to really overhaul the Xenoblade engine. So I do think this is all basically Monolith Soft transitioning over to next generation development. I think it's a little bit more than that though, because it's speaking to the expansion of Monolith Soft, right? They've had 3 different studios that have helped with code development in their own games, and this is going to facilitate even more work getting done from Monolith Soft. And so that's exciting stuff. Monolith Soft is getting bigger. And to me, that's exciting. And I've always felt like Monolith Soft, in terms of Nintendo hardware, has really been kind of outputting some pretty impressive games for Nintendo hardware. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles 1 on the Wii was mind-blowing at the time. Like, just the scope of that game. Like, there's this one moment I was playing Xenoblade 1 where it's, is it Magna Forest? Hopefully I remember the name right, but...
I think that's the name.
The Forest of the Nopon, right? And as you're in the lead-up to that, there's this giant waterfall. And just remind yourselves that back in that day, that open-world games weren't really as prevalent. And even actually, what they did in that game is still something you don't see in a lot of games today. but you see this massive waterfall, and you're just kind of running through this jungle area, and you're like, huh, what were to happen if I were to jump down? 99% of all games, this actually percentage is probably higher, you just die, right? Or you respawn, right?
Yeah.
Like there are plenty of open world games that have a vast expanse you can see onto the distance. You jump down, that's it. Like you die or you respawn. No. In Xenoblade Chronicles 1, you go all the way down, like, and you're falling for like a good minute. Like you could go to the fridge, grab a snack, come back, and still falling. And then you fall in the water, and you're just in a different area of the map.
Right.
To me, that was one of the most mind-blowing moments. I was like, wow, they got that.
Oh,
They
yeah.
accomplished that on Wii. And like ever since, like Monolith Soft has always created games on Nintendo hardware that to me is just like beautiful. I always find their games magical, and we've seen them do some pretty cool things tech-wise. But to see what they're going to be able to do for Switch 2, seeing this more dedicated effort on their big update for this next engine, like to me, that gets me kind of giddy. But where do you guys stand?
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, I always want to see what Monolith Soft is going to do next, especially tech-wise, because I feel like they're just them and like Retro Studios are probably the biggest teams for Nintendo that just pioneer graphics technologies and just push the Nintendo hardware in ways that other studios just aren't doing. And I think, I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is such a stunning game, and it has a lot of tech in it that even like a lot of other big Nintendo games, like Tears of the Kingdom, isn't using TAA resolution upscaling. Like that game is, and it looks so much better for it. And I am kind of surprised they didn't already have an R&D team, to be honest, with how good they were with tech. But I guess they just kind of did their R&D as they were doing the game, didn't have like a separate team dedicated to that. But it is nice to see that. I kind of hope that they do R&D and inform like all of the first party studios for like Nintendo, all like their internal studios, because I think their tech is great and it can be used in a lot of different engines, and they know a lot. And I mean, they help with so many different games already. But I mean, like Pokemon Company and Game Freak could, as we were mentioning earlier, could really use some of that Monolith Soft magic. And I think a lot of the other studios could as well. So I hope this R&D isn't just for the Xenoblade and Monolith Soft projects, but it's kind of like for Nintendo as a whole in a way. But yeah, I'm super excited. I think the next game that comes out on Switch 2 is whatever the first game is for Switch 2 is going to look absolutely stunning.
Yeah, that's a team that I have a lot of faith in. Like, they've only gotten better at understanding the hardware, and I mean, it's a little bit subjective to say, you know, which game between the Xenoblade Chronicles ones on Wii U and Nintendo Switch do you like better in terms of their story and character development, voice acting, all that kind of stuff. But just understanding how to utilize the engine and make it better, they've only gotten better and better, in my opinion, optimizing it. So now giving them, you know, true horsepower boost that is much greater of a, you know, leap forward than ever before. I'm stoked to see what it is, whether it's, you know, Xenoblade Chronicles something, so they capitalize on the name, but it's just totally unrelated, you know, not a part of the old trilogy, not a part of the old universe, nothing else, just Xenoblade Chronicles in terms of the name.
Right.
Or Xeno something else to kind of tie into, they're sort of known for that, you know, Gears, Blade, Chronicles, Saga, right? Or just something totally different. Like, I think back to that artwork that we saw like 6-7 years ago of the woman with the sword, and in the background you had the flying red dragon that was sort of in and out of the picture, and she's got like a crown, and, you know, is she a princess, and is this an RPG? Is it an action RPG? This looks kind of Zelda-like. Like, this looks cool. Is that the game? Is it? I'm excited. Whatever they have, and you said it too, Brandon. Like Retro Studios and them, there are a couple of those teams that I look forward to all of Nintendo projects, but with those, you don't really know what you're going to get next. sadly with retro studios, you don't know when you're getting it. Not this month, but when. But yeah, I'm down for that. I think this is going to be, if not in the debut trailer, presumably that first 2-minute look at Nintendo Switch 2, definitely in that supposed bigger expanse trailer, kind of like akin to that January 2021.
Sure.
Like, this is something that's been in development for a while, I think, and this is going to be like a real looker. So you're used to seeing, RPGs in the last few years looking good on PS5 and stuff, right? Well, look at this, exclusive.
So are we all in agreement then that the new IP is the next big thing for Monolith Soft? Yeah.
It
Xenoblade
is very
4
likely,
is
unless it got scrapped.
Happening, but it's a few years from now.
Yeah. Unless it got scrapped, I don't see what other projects they could have that would be more ready than this one. They've been working on it since 2017, 2018?
I just find the situation highly coincidental that they've had the hiring post for this new IP for 7 years.
Right.
And now as we are about to maybe get the Switch 2 reveal, right? We're about to enter that launch year Switch 2. They announce intent to make another project, and that one is gone. Like, it seems a little coincidental, right? Like they got something, right? They're not just gonna not make a game, right?
Right.
They if you look at their cadence of releases, they only take 1 year breaks and then there's something else. So this is the 1 year break. Something else, at least by the pattern, is next year. Hey, we got a visitor in the background. Yeah. So I'm expecting something, but I think what maybe kind of messes with my brain a little bit. Like, it's easy for me to be like, all right, so we're getting new IP next year. But we have this rumor from Ryan from the Bronx, who supposedly is Midori, which maybe the jury's still out on that one. But they say that Xenoblade Chronicles X is coming to Nintendo Switch, and there will be a Switch 2 version. So I'm a little confused there because, I mean, if maybe it's bogus. Yeah, I think that's a consideration. But if it's not bogus, does that get in the way of the new IP? Like, does that mean we get Xenoblade X next year and that the new IP comes out in 2026? Or do we see both? One of the, I don't know. That's what I mean by it kind of like messes my brain a little bit. Right. I mean, I guess theoretically both could have been done. I
don't think we get both in the same year.
Could the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 team that once they finished up the DLC, that they didn't prioritize getting a remaster of Xenoblade Chronicles X? And then the team that's working the new IP, they've been finishing up that, and then the other studios for those co-development. Like, is that because it wouldn't take that much time to put together Xenoblade Chronicles X?
You give Shiver Entertainment Xenoblade Chronicles X, and then you let the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 team work on this new IP.
I really like that thought process that they just poured it. Like, the Shiver Entertainment's now owned by Nintendo, right?
Yeah. That's the one that they got acquired for.
I mean,
I don't know. I hope it's not true. I really don't want a basic Xenoblade. I mean, I do want it, right? Because I want to play Xenoblade Chronicles X on Switch.
What if it's a definitive edition?
I just
who's
don't
to say it's
feel
just a
like
basic
they
port?
can do an ambitious definitive edition on Switch. I just don't feel like there's enough extra power over Wii U to do something that's like anything near the definitive edition we got for Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not even called Definitive Edition. Maybe it's just called Xenoblade Chronicles X.
I would just be disappointed that we didn't get it earlier. Like, why do we have to wait till this like Switch?
Why didn't we get Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD? Where's that?
I feel like
Fire
we're not
Emblem
going to
remake?
get those either.
Where's Metroid Prime 2 and 3? Like,
I think Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are going to come eventually. It's just that so much time went by that, like, now the gap between the Wii U version of Wind Waker and today is longer than the gap between the GameCube version and Wii U. And it's only going to continue. That's crazy. Like, I remember being at that E3 when we got Wind Waker footage for the first time. Like, wow, GameCube 10 years ago, and now it's been like 11 years. So I think
you're
it's just
blowing my mind, Paul.
it's going to be a filler. It's going to be, Nintendo. We knew this ahead of time, but development is going to take longer on Nintendo Switch 2 games because they're going to be of a greater scope and they're going to have bigger textures and more time that's going to have to be put into them. So let's use some of those games that we didn't flip before and flip them now. But and that's where I think Nintendo Switch is going, not to change the topic too much, but that's where I think Nintendo Switch is going to have some longer legs, is that it's going to exist in getting new games via ports and remasters. Stuff that doesn't need a whole lot of processing power. Like, here's the Wii U version, basically, of the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on Nintendo Switch. And then here is the up-resed 4K version on Nintendo Switch 2. And then you could play either one. Whereas if they're making a brand new Ocarina of Time remake, right, that's going to be just Nintendo Switch 2. It's too ambitious, probably, in the scope to dumb it down, not to insult it, but for just Switch. But
I mean, also the point of that would be to get people to buy a Switch 2, right? Like, if we're going to get a remake like Ocarina of Time, like, that would be kind of like a holdover as a major 3D Zelda release early on for the console, because we're years away before the next 3D Zelda, right? So that would be so, like, if you make it for Switch 1, it kind of defeats the purpose of that, I would say. But you brought the fun fact of the gap between Wind Waker on GameCube and Wind Waker HD, but also the same time for Ocarina of Time. The gap between Ocarina of Time, which came out in '98, versus Ocarina of Time 3D came out, I believe, 2011. That was 13 years, right? How long has it been since 2011?
Yeah, 13 years.
Yeah, but and I think this remake will come out 2026 for the 40th anniversary, which would then be 15 years, an even longer gap.
A long time.
So it's just kind of crazy. Shout outs to Boo Mini, by the way, for gifting a membership, and congrats to Joycey for being awarded that membership. I'm excited for Xenoblade. But let's check over the chat real quick, and then we'll move on to the topic that people have voted for. Let's see here. Pyrostorm, a remake of Xenoblade X would be better than a port, especially if they have plans to expand that series. See, my thing about like porting X, listen, could they port X to Switch with some minor quality of life updates, and then have that same version for Switch 2, but maybe like with 4K and ray tracing or something? Like, that would be cool. I would like that. It wouldn't be a definitive edition, right? And there would be an enhanced version. So, I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but I would kind of feel like it'd be a bit of a missed opportunity, because with Xenoblade Chronicles 1, when we got the definitive edition, they added Future Connected, like a whole other area to explore, another campaign. It was like another 20, 30 hours of gameplay. That's kind of what I want to see for X, especially because with X, it does kind of need an epilogue story. It leaves us off on a cliffhanger. So either A, we're getting a proper sequel to X someday, or they give us a definitive edition with an epilogue story that kind of speaks to that ending that's a cliffhanger. I'd be a little disappointed if it's kind of like a basic thing, but also I still might get it. Because I would love to
get it, but
yeah, like if it has somewhat enhanced visuals, even if it's not like a full full thing like it did with one, with some improvements to like the UI and like the font and stuff like that, I would be like, you know what, I'm still interested in this. We'll see what they do. Either way, Monolith Soft is going to cook. Like, I have faith in that studio. So whatever it is that they're doing, whatever they have planned for next year, it's going to be good. But now let's end the poll. I am disappointed. I knew what the answer was going to be, but I'm still disappointed. What should be the third topic? And the options I had were Nintendo Direct and Switch 2 Hopium at 58%. That's the winner. Prime 4 being excluded, 19%. Echoes of Wisdom Thoughts, 18%. Virtual Boy League, 3%. Man, no one cares about the Virtual Boy League. It's actually, I mean, maybe there should be...
Give love to the Virtual Boy, come on.
It matters more than I think some people realize. But we'll come back to the Virtual Boy League, don't worry. It's not going to be the last topic. Spoilers. But for the third topic, let's jump into it. Let's see here. Nintendo Direct, Switch 2, not another imprisoning war story cutscene. Yeah, it kind of feels like, every few weeks we have like this mustering of excitement, this smoke or apparent smoke for something that may or may not happen. Um, and people get excited. The hope builds. And I do think we are in the calm before the storm. But when I say the calm before the storm, I mean it more in a broader sense. Like it could be this week, but it also could
Right.
just be like this few month period before something really big happens. Um, and I do believe, and I had this theory like for a while back, so I kind of like that. It feels like a lot of people have come to the same conclusion as I did a few months back, that if they reveal the Switch 2, it should be more than just a trailer, but like a direct. Like you think about what we know about for next year, it's just Donkey Kong in January. They're going to have to kind of tell us a little bit more. We're going to need to learn about the launch title and maybe even the second and third month titles a little bit, with a little bit more of a significant presentation. Nothing like an hour thing, like an hour long show, like they would do with Switch 1 in January. That still would come. But like, like maybe like a 10 to 15 minute direct that gives a little bit more on some games. That's kind of what I've thought will happen. And we are, even if we don't get a Switch 2 reveal, like it does feel like we need to get, it doesn't feel, we need to get Nintendo news. We don't know about the February game. We don't know about the March game. We look at the entire like Switch 2, like not Switch 2, Switch 1 like generation, save for Bayonetta Origins in 2022, which we learned about the Game Awards.
Mm-hmm.
We knew about the February and March games by this point in the year, and we don't this time. So it is weird. We are due for some Nintendo published game news. Whatever form that comes in, it feels like that should probably happen before Nintendo's shareholder meeting at the beginning of November. But what do you guys think? What's going on here?
I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard out here trying to look at the information and suss out what is real and what is not, and even beyond that, it's like, how do you interpret this information? And it is very hard. But I mean, inevitably, we're always getting closer. That's the nice thing, is that there's an end date for this, March 31st of 2025, and as we get closer, the chances, boy, do they get higher. So I am feeling good. I do feel like the chances for it, however, being announced this year are quickly actually going down, dropping off a cliff, I would say. Not that there's no chance at the moment. There's still plenty of chances. It's just that time, it's you say, well, there's 3 months, but it would be kind of weird to announce it in December for sure. I definitely don't think there's any chance that December is the month where they're going to announce it. I mean, but anything can happen, but I don't feel like that's going to happen. Other than this month, which I feel like is the most likely, maybe because they don't have like a second half of November game, do they? Like that's kind of an open time slot where they usually have a game, right?
You mean like, because like we usually have a game in Black Friday, like right before.
Yeah, usually it's like
Luigi is the closest.
Yeah.
To that spot, yeah.
November 7th. But we do kind of have a game like that. It's called Dragon Quest.
See, the third party game is a pretty big one.
Yeah,
it's gonna sell the most on Switch in Japan. Like
that's true.
The Dragon Quest is huge. It's not a little thing. It's a very, very, very big thing. We don't realize it because we in the West don't appreciate goodness.
Right.
We do.
RPGs.
But I'm just saying, Dragon Quest is not as popular here as it is on the other side of the world.
And 3 is one of Japan's most beloved entries.
Yeah,
not the Giant,
picking it up.
But 3 in particular, like.
Well, maybe that's a bigger deal than I think, so it doesn't make sense. But there isn't a first-party game coming out then, so they could, view that as an open time slot.
There will be a lot of Switches sold.
That is true.
Nintendo's gonna make money.
Maybe at that, I don't know. It is a weird time to announce this. I don't know. Anyways, I'm really hopeful for an October reveal, though. I am thinking it's coming this month.
I am too, for now. You
For
know,
now, right?
if you rewound prior to, I think it was like a Tuesday morning, prior to September 10th, when I got that little tip that, hey, it looks like a Nintendo Switch successor commercial-like trailer was filmed recently. Can't verify 100%, Paul, but it looks like something was recently filmed. Prior to then, I was with everyone else hoping, oh man, as part of a late September direct, that would be cool. Or October 20th, just like, or close to October 20th, just like Nintendo did 7 years ago. But I don't think it's going to happen this year because, and I always went back to this, and a lot of people didn't agree because they couldn't see past this comment of Nintendo not wanting to hurt their holiday sales because Nintendo is in a much different position now than they were in 2016, where it didn't matter if you hurt Wii U sales. Wii U wasn't going to sell that well over the holiday season. And you can make the argument, but what about 3DS? Wii U and 3DS were not as good as the previous generation's pairing of Wii and DS. 3DS did well, and it was okay at that point, but it did less than 50%, I think, of Nintendo DS's total sales.
Something
And
like that, yeah.
Hmm?
No, I was just saying your numbers seem pretty close.
It's around there, yeah.
And Nintendo Switch was being positioned primarily as a home console that you could take on the go. So kind of different. So yeah, announce Nintendo Switch. Get some public faith back. Nintendo's at an all-time high of public faith. They weren't in the best position in the common install base of gamers in the world of like, oh, Nintendo, that's not that hot. Right now, they're coming off of a successful movie. They have a movie sequel on the way, a Zelda movie on the way. They released a park. They're upgrading their facility in Kyoto to have a whole new thing. They're opening up a new store in San Francisco. They have another theme park in Florida that's in development. One theme park that came out in California. They have another one in not Indonesia. There's a fourth one that's being in development as well. So like Nintendo's public mind space is so much better, and the systems are actually selling. Right now, Nintendo has sold 4.6-ish million of their 13.5 million that they're anticipating, which means around 6 million or so is their projection for this holiday season. That's still a lot. So if anyone completely rules out, there's no way that Nintendo could release a new console, show it off now, and think it's not going to hurt. It will hurt. But Nintendo has to be very careful because you could look at it from different perspectives, and I know they're looking at it from different perspectives. Can you cause more harm this way or cause more harm that way? And what I'm saying is there's another side to that coin. If you show off Nintendo Switch too early, yes, you can take a little bit of those sales away from hypothetical Nintendo Switch consumers this holiday season that know that they could just wait a few more months. But you're also taking away a couple of PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series purchasers that, had they known a new Nintendo hardware that is capable of playing those third-party games on a Nintendo machine, and all they got to do is wait 4 months, maybe they wouldn't buy a PS5 for Black Friday or an Xbox Series X for Christmas. You know what I mean? Like, right. So there is a little bit of that, and they're no doubt got to be playing with what is the lesser of two evils. What is the best way to maximize current hardware sales? And they want to have their cake and eat it too. It really is a case of that. And in order to hit that 13.5 million, they've got to be very careful with it. And you could say, yeah, but they already announced it in May. They already announced it. Dude, any of my non-hardcore gamer friends don't know about that report. Those are the few million fiscal report nerds such as ourselves, and I mean that in a complimentary way, that are hardcore, that are passionate, that are on the forums and on X and YouTube channels and stuff like that. We know about that. None of my son's friends, my daughter's friends have heard about this, nor their parents know that a Nintendo Switch successor is on the way. When I go to the gym, people know Nintendo Switch. They don't know about this fiscal report announced in May that a successor will be announced before the end of their fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. They don't know that. As soon as you make a big, bold trailer, and that trailer has 30 million views on YouTube, and it's cranking and cranking and cranking, that's when it's going to start to slowly affect, and a little bit more so affect, the people that are buying. Because
Right.
as much as you say the market is capped, the market is reached, no, it's not. It's not yet. There is still, they wouldn't have a projection that big if they didn't think they could sell another 13.5 million, you know? They wouldn't be releasing games this far in, and they're not going to abandon this 120 million active install base of people that are playing, clocking into the Nintendo Switch in the last 12 months at least once a month for something. They didn't have that with Wii U or 3DS or really any system ever this strong. So there is a lot of merit. I know I'm talking a long time. Hope I'm not
You
taking
good?
my turn, but prior to that little tip, I was like, as much as I think it'd be cool to be on Team September or October, I personally was like, no, I'm on Team 2025. And it was an unpopular opinion at the time, because I was like, I think we know that it's going to be shown off before March, but you don't talk about it literally until, March. And that's a painful thing, but I was ready for that, thinking that's when they're going to wait. And this thing is going to have like a 4.5 month window, and we're looking at maybe an August, September kind of release. They're not going to have more than 6 months between reveal and when it comes out. So I was like, March to September. September's an N64 month, September 29th. And that's not that bad. No more than 6 months, maybe like August, like I was saying. Then when I heard that though, and when I say I believe it, but it's not 100% verified. And the only way it would actually be 100% verified would be if I wasn't talking about it at all, because that would mean that I'm in the commercial, Because these days, there are people that are so good at faking it that now I would have a hard time not believing it to be true. Well, let's say somebody had nothing else better to do and was filming a university video school project and said, hey, let's make a fake Nintendo Switch 2 trailer and see if we could pass it off. And we're going to hire different actors and actresses, make a makeshift house, hire some curtains and some wardrobes, people to create this. Hey, you go work on Unreal and see if you can bust out a new good looking Mario, and working on behind the scenes. And let's get this jacket looking trendy. Yeah, let's have this sunset thing. Let's get some good cameras and record it. Have a nice Mario. Just start playing in Street Fighter and Elden Ring and throw it in there and have a hip hop song, and don't worry about getting copyrighted, and leak it out there some way, right?
It's possible, but it feels extremely hard. This would be very expensive to fake, because it wouldn't just be Mario though, right? You would have to have like several Nintendo games,
Ooh. If I saw that, I would probably then say, hey, internet, yeah, I saw it. You know what I mean? Unless if it fooled me. So there's still a tiny chance. So the only way I could truly say this tip that I received is real is if I was in it. Sure. And if I was in it, I wouldn't be talking about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. Do you ever you ever have like these times where you personally believe something, right? But when it comes to talking about it with other people, you're like, oh, well, I may believe this, but, there's always a chance that, it's kind of like, in order for you to believe something, there's a certain threshold of confidence and it's something needs to be hit, right? But when it comes to talking about believing something with other people and be like, hey, I think this is probably happening, the threshold is even higher, if that makes any sense. Yeah. For example, if you told me personally, hey, I think Switch 2 is getting revealed on Thursday, right? Privately. And you're like, why? Well, I know. If you told me you knew, but only privately, I'd be like, oh, I believe Paul, right? I trust Paul. But does that mean I would then say, hey, guys, Switch 2 is 100% getting revealed on Thursday? I wouldn't. Because that's another level, right?
There's a certain chain, and you believe the chain link right before you with good reason or good reason not to. And it's like, well, Paul, how do you know? And if I was like, dude, I saw it and it's amazing. You'd be like, really? Okay. Oh man, there's very little reason to doubt. If I said I saw it, unless if I got tricked in some elaborate scheme of a video, which would be kind of rare to pull off that good. Like you said,
Right.
is it impossible? No. Is it improbable? Improbable, yes. But look at the Grinch leak. Look at the Stewie Griffin Nintendo NX thing. Like, people go to great lengths to have fun for whatever reason. So I cannot say completely. However, when I made, and like, I know I'm a part of the circus. I'm a part of one little morsel at least of why there's some stock in there. Not like anybody is going off of my word, but I'm helping the idea out there publicly that, like, yeah, I think this 6-week window. Now, that 6-week window, though, some people interpret a little bit too much and take that word as gospel. You gotta read and understand what the words are and not make more out of it what you want. When I say, I think within a 1 to 6 week time frame, it's coming in 1 to 6 weeks. He said it. No. I said I think. But
That's your forecast.
Right.
I clarify why. Why is because when I was a part of the Nintendo Switch in Unexpected Places commercial, within several days is when they launched that commercial, which was the one with John Cena, the one that you could only see the back of my
Right.
head. It's my head,
Yeah.
right? So I know Nintendo has the capability of filming and turning around a commercial in a week. Okay. I was also part of the greater Nintendo Switch in Unexpected Places commercial, which came out like 18 days or 21 days after. So, okay, 3 weeks is also fair to edit together a bigger video, because the one I was in with my face did take like a minute and a half versus the other one that was 30 seconds. But then I also know from another source that the original OG Nintendo Switch Karen Rooftop Bringing It to Your Friend trailer,
The GOAT trailer.
that one with all the views and stuff like that, that one was filmed on, oh boy, like a Friday, September 16th, and came out 34 days later. So that's where I came up with my 6 weeks. 6 weeks is technically just a smidge longer, right? 42 days. But I was like, you know what? That seems fair based off of how long Nintendo could take to debut it, being longer than the commercials that I was in, because there's also more to go wrong. You know?
When did you initially say on Twitter? I don't remember when you heard that there might have been something filmed.
September 10th.
That's when you posted that on Twitter.
Tuesday morning. I just got that little tip that Tuesday morning, and I was like, hey, you know what? Let me talk a little bit. All right, for what it's worth, this is what I got. So then my guess was, but I wasn't told when, but dude, it looks like something was filmed recently. What's recently? Gosh, recently could be a month ago. Could that be recent? But if I hear something, some things I don't hear right away. Most things I don't hear about at all, you know. But if I hear something, I'm trying to think, like, recent is probably you told me when you found out. So if you found out close to it is probably several days. So I came up with my own the Friday before I found out. I picked Friday just because Friday was when that original Nintendo Switch trailer was. So I'm trying to make my own dots. I don't have all of the clues. I have a piece of information that I believe in but cannot verify, because I wasn't in it, nor did I see it. Those would be the only two ways that I would truly verify it. So I said, like, okay, Friday the 6th, what's a 6-week gap? You know what? I'm going to go and say, I'm going to give it 34 days. And that's a little bit, you know, 6 times 7 is 42. Yeah, 42 would be, whatever. Is my math right here? Whatever. October 24th, that would be like that 6-week mark, plus a couple of days, just because it's called a Thursday. And then, so, geez, here's another one. Like, sometimes you wonder, is it worth to say? Because I was having fun with Mario and Luigi Brothership. I like to look into numbers, and I thought, you know what? Let me just pick a date that I think sounds good, that looks good, and we're going to go with October 10th, because October 10th is this many days after this hypothetical thing. And hey, Mario and Luigi, or, you know, landing 10-10, is that 10-10? And then I see a lot of people taking it as like, it's happening 10-10. She said 10-10. I'm like, dude. Or some people, I can't believe how stupid you are saying it's 10-10 from that. Like, how do you buy into that? Dude, part of it is fun. If you can't read the humor in the lines, it's not that I'm diving in so deep, thinking with so much passion that like, oh my gosh, I cracked the Da Vinci Code. They just gave it here. It's 10-10. I nailed it.
He's broke through the matrix. Oh god.
It's a little tongue in cheek, but there's a little bit of a morsel of some optimistic coincidence that it would be cool. But I'm just sharing because here I'm able to speak a little bit more freely and live and candid of coming out with, this is my reasoning for the time gap because of that. This is my reasoning for the Mario and Luigi Brothership thing because it kind of fits and it works and it's good with my projected time. But yeah, do I know? No, I don't actually know. I will say this because I feel like this last, I don't know, X amount of minutes has been a little bit too much me, but I wanted to share where I'm coming from.
We're all listening, man.
I do have till October 24th. So if it doesn't happen this Thursday, I think you go until October 24th. That is at least my time that I was giving when I said 1 to 6 weeks or something like that. I think that was the latter half, going that far. And if it doesn't happen by 31st, I'm pretty much back to my old self of Team 2025. I do have 2 final dates though, but they're 2 very different things. Not to say it's impossible, but maybe a little bit not likely, but December 12th, the Game Awards. Would Nintendo choose an event that they have to share with everyone at? Maybe not, but do they also realize that, hey, this is going to be seen by 90 million people, and we're going to be launching a product in 4 months' time that's going to blow everyone away. We could be seen that by the most amount of people. We're only giving up 18 days worth of sales for the holiday seasons, but it is the most crucial holiday shopping time. That's not the most optimum. What if we throw a price drop or something like, could they do December 12th? It's possible. I won't omit it. But that's like a grand, okay, you get this 90-second awesome looking thing. A much more tame option is if we don't get it between October 10th and 31st, right? Going longer than my window. The last time I think to see it is November 5th. And that's the fiscal report.
Right.
But it wouldn't be a video because they never said we're going to show you a video before March 31st. The next time that we will discuss it or that it will be...
I think they use the term announcement.
Announcement. So at a fiscal report, you could say we are, in addition to Nintendo Switch selling 2.6 million units in the last 3 months and, 34 million copies of, software, and we're still on our projection of 13.5. And this is how many copies that this sold. And by the way, even though Echoes of Wisdom was only out for blah, 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 it actually managed to sell 2.5 million and so forth. And we're also proud to announce today that in the spring of 2025, the successor to Nintendo Switch, known as Nintendo Switch 2, will be coming out. That's it. And that's it.
It would give us a name and a release window, though.
Boring in a window. And that is absolutely within the realm of possibility because guess what? This also bodes well to this is how Nintendo is thinking of the hardcore fans. We gave you what you want. Investors, we give you an outlook. It's not everything what you wanted, but it's content to make. It's stuff to get talked about. It's the hardcore people that are watching this podcast right now and everyone else on X and YouTube. We already have a Nintendo Switch, so this little announcement is not going to hurt us, right? We already know, like, we're not going to buy another Nintendo Switch this, Black Friday.
Yeah.
But it satisfies one need, but it doesn't go out there for the 40 million people that are our friends, the people at the gym that kind of like gaming or pick up a Switch, or our kids' friends. And so you know what I mean? So that's a way how they could have their cake and eat it too. I don't omit November 5th, but it would be a very different type of announcement, just an announcement and a window, but it doesn't damage their holiday sales. So if we don't get it, I feel like I'm on something. I mentioned it before, but like I'm on fire more now in your live stream than I was able to convey in my typing. But this is
Dude,
where I'm coming from.
tweets suck. Like, because you can only say so much in a certain amount of space, and even if you like put a long body of text to really elaborate, people then just think you're crazy for writing that much. But then
yeah, they're like, too long, not reading
right.
this.
But then too, they don't hear the tone, right? There's so much lost.
I know it's risky business. People will point out when you were incorrect about something, and then they'll give you half credit for the stuff that you did right. And then some people weren't there long enough ago when you were writing for gamers.com and oneup.com that some of the stuff from that era is out of their mind. But some people show up now and then. Somebody just showed up in the chat right now, X Shango X, who knows me from 2011 during the PlayStation All-Star Battle Royale days.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
What a trip that was. Oh, and by the way, you'll probably get it later, but I wanted to say thanks, Jacob Dressback, before you leave. He dropped a $5.
Oh yeah, shout outs to Jacob.
So,
thank you for the super chat. We do love you, Paul. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll try to talk less now, so you two could.
No, I mean there's a lot to pick at there, but since I'm checking the super chats, Having Hope asks, how's Miss Ruby doing? Ruby's doing well. She's sleeping. She's good. Maybe I'll bring her on at the end of the show. But just continuing on with this subject, right? Like you kind of talked about like the holiday sales thing, right? And you already made your point clear. You're still on team 2024.
Well, 2024 is still October.
Still October. It's not over yet. But you haven't jumped ship yet. But you do have your life vest on though. Yeah.
And I said I would be very happy. Oh, and I even said this, and I'll say this one time here because you've got how many people in the chat right now? You got 223 watching. So some of these
nice. Thanks, guys.
might be following on X or might have seen some of the stuff I put on X. I'm not a liar. On October 10th, I will say, see you. I told you all. I called it. My Mario Brothership thing was right. Oh, I told you it was October 10th. That trailer. I won't do that because I don't know. So I won't showboat. I will say, it looks like things lined up well. Maybe Brothership was a coincidence, but I'm glad that it came out with the window that I thought. And some people will say, sweet, that story was right. Some will say, happy coincidence. But if it doesn't show off, I won't be so disappointed that my claim didn't work because, like everyone else, I don't know it. I'm speculating. I'm using educated guesses based off of being in the industry long enough to do so, seeing how certain companies work, what has worked better than others, and trying to take as many of the different possibilities and formulating my own thought on when it would be good, but also understanding why it's not good, right? Because there is that truth. And then at the end of the day, being happy because, like, hey, I'm still playing Echoes of Wisdom. Jamboree's coming out. Brothership's coming out. Dragon Quest III. Like, I haven't picked up Astrobot yet. I've been too busy teaching. Like, there's other stuff. And then I've got, Metroid Prime 4. We're living in a world where Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is still coming to our current platform. We're not eating that bad.
I still think it's coming to Switch too.
Maybe it comes from
Russia
being, a little bit older and having those hardcore droughts at the end of N64, at the end of GameCube, at the end of Wii's life, and knowing the slog that happens and just being so fortunate now, so grateful that we have so much freaking gaming that we don't even know what to do with. But it really doesn't bother me too much if it doesn't get shown off. I just feel a little disappointed, like, oh man, I want to see it, but it doesn't hurt too bad, but it makes it look good. But I'm also not going to say, told you, I was right, I nailed it, I knew, because I don't.
I mean, it's just kind of weird how these things work. Like, it's one of those things where, so I predicted a reveal on September 19th, right? But that was a prediction. I never promised, claimed anything. And I feel like in every video that I've made on the subject, I've always said, hey, this is what I think for these reasons. I do not know. It could be wrong. Maybe it's October. Maybe it's later. But I still see people saying, oh, you told us this date. No, I didn't. I did not. And it's just it's funny Like some people like to accuse you of things that you may or may not have said and say you're wrong, but they also will never go back and talk about all the things you got right. Because I've been playing Echoes of Wisdom, and I feel like 90% of my theories were 100% spot on. I remember when I made a video about Link being playable, and a lot of people were mad that I made that video, but it was accurate. No one's come back and said, "Hey, you know what? You were right about this." That's just not how the internet works. And so the thing is, I don't want to like go and create a list and talk about everything I've done right, because I think that goes against the spirit of speculation. When we're we're speculating, considering both. We're trying to consider the different outcomes. And so, like for example, when you talk about, hey, like maybe something does happen on the 10th, maybe not. You're not going to come out here and say, "Oh, I was right." But the fact of the matter is, you were suggesting a possibility and entertaining that possibility while also being aware of other possibilities. So it's not really fair to say, "Oh, I got this right." It's fair to say, "Hey, I talked about this as a possibility that I really wanted to happen, and hey, it happened. This is awesome." Like I think that's fair, So the internet is weird.
If somebody else comes out later on, like one of the actors from said commercial, and goes on a podcast and says, "Oh yeah, we filmed this thing like August 29th and it was really cool," I'll be like, sweet. That I'll say, hey, when I said on the 10th that I heard that it was, filmed recently, I could say, hey, that was my little piece that that source checked out. Cool. But I'm also not like bragful anyway. It'd be pretty easy to. Maybe I should. I probably shouldn't even joke. Like I was like, maybe I should make a mock video. I know I was right, but it's not my attitude in the first place to do so. But also, it wouldn't be perceived well because someone would be like, "Oh yeah, sure, yeah, you know."
But let's go back to like the holiday sales argument, right?
Yeah.
Because and maybe the reason I look at it from this perspective is because I want the reveal to happen now. But I go back to the 2016, right? And yeah, the Wii wasn't doing well. The 3DS wasn't as strong as the DS, but the 3DS was still seeing relatively healthy sales at the time. It was still their main seller, and the Switch was a successor to both consoles. But you know what they also announced during that period of time? The NES Classic Edition, right? Like that was also a big thing. And when Pokemon Sun and Moon came out in November, after Switch was revealed, Pokemon Sun and Moon was, for a little while, a record-breaking, fastest-selling Nintendo game of all time. So I don't know. Like I don't really feel like the sales impacted it so much. So, like, because they still had all these other things going on. They still had all the bundles. They still had all this stuff going on. I'm not so sure that the sales are that big of a deal. And then I think something else that we should consider is that, I agree with you, though, that like when Nintendo does announce it, it's going to impact sales on a larger level. But also, the Switch has been out since 2017. It is 2024. It is the end of 2024. Switch came out early 2017. If you haven't bought a Switch yet, when will you? Right? Like, so I guess my point is that like I just don't think like I think like a $450 Switch 2 is going to take away from someone buying a $250 Switch that they've been waiting 7 years to buy.
You know who's gonna buy it? The 6 million people this December that for some reason they didn't get it. Like they still exist.
Yeah. I do feel like those people probably wouldn't get a Switch 2 day one though. Like if you've waited this long to get a Switch, are you really the type of person who's gonna be like, I have to get a Switch 2 immediately?
But also,
like,
how many
you weren't
going to
do that
anyways? Double dippers. Sorry, Brandon, I mean to cut you off.
No, I was done.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on, like, but how many people are those double dippers? Like, because every time Nintendo releases a bundle, there are people that are just going to buy that. They already have one or two Switches. Like, there are collectors.
That's not in the hundreds of thousands.
I do need to buy a new Switch, actually. I do have to get a new Switch. Currently, I don't have any working Switch. I have to get a new one. So I am in the market for a Switch.
I will say I'm
one of those 6 million. I'm helping them out.
I had multiple Nintendo 3DSs. I had multiple Nintendo DSs. I had bought Nintendo Wii twice. I feel like there's just people people do like we look at there is 143 million Switches that have been bought, but I don't think there's 143 million unique people that own a Switch. I think that number is a little less because there is the double dips, the people that buy more. Of course, at the same time, there are people who buy a Switch for the family, right? So it's kind of like a little bit of a mix. Like I would say that there's definitely more than 143 million people that have played Nintendo Switch. It's kind of hard to gauge that, right? But that's when you account for multiplayer and families and people sharing a console like that. That number obviously gets higher to the amount of people, but it's hard to say how many that is. I guess that's why it's also interesting looking at just the amount of Nintendo accounts there are, because you can have multiple Nintendo accounts for one console. But I think last I heard, the Nintendo accounts, like there's still like over 100 million active online users per year. Like it's still an insane number. And I don't remember the exact number. I'm sure it's actually probably a little bit higher, a good amount higher than that. But it's not quite 143, but it's still a very healthy amount of people, unique people playing for at least once per year.
Yeah, I remember the figure being around 120 something million.
Nin 120 saying 120 million active users. It
is interesting to think what's the trade-off? I mean, there are a certain amount of people that are one person who bought 4 or 5 Nintendo Switches, and then there are a certain amount of people who bought one Nintendo Switch, yet 4 or 5 people in their household are playing it, right? So what is the overall tally of this is how many unique systems are out there that were purchased per person, and this is how many of those people have shared versus not? But it's overall really freaking successful, Are there some people out there with multiple copies of Mario Kart because they can't get enough of that box dropping every Black Friday and they need the artwork of everyone? Oh yeah, they exist. It's got to be a very small percentage.
Yeah, definitely.
But it makes
that's Zelda Switch Lite, though. I think there are just some Zelda like that's.
You're
one of them. You're one of them.
So I have. So here's a good point. Yeah, like
there's 6 million Paul Gales.
I have purchased 3 Nintendo Switch consoles. However, all 4 people in my household do have an account, are a part of the NSO plan, and do play. So, I went by my OG launch Switch. I got day 1 in 2017, and then I passed on Lite because my kids were young enough that we didn't quite need a whole other Nintendo Switch console. Everyone could just share and take their time. I got the OLED model because at that point, both kids were a little bit older. So it's like there is a little bit more incentive to have multiplayer two games going on at the same time. So for that reason, it made sense. Otherwise, for that whole few year time, the 4 of us we had one Switch and we all had our account on that one. And then when I didn't get a Lite until the Zelda one came out because I'm like, it's too cool to pass up on. It's still in the box actually, but I will probably open it and play it, and then I'll get the Nintendo Switch 2, and then all 4 of us will be able to hopefully interact with one another if they are backwards compatible in those regards and
stuff. Be nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I guess that we haven't touched on. None of us know if the Switch is going to get revealed. We can all hope. That's pretty much it. It makes sense, but we'll see. But what do you make of the Nintendo Direct situation? Like, do you think, I guess I'm actually kind of want to talk about 2 different things here, right? Like, one, do you think we get more than just a trailer? Is the trailer a part of a bigger 10 to 15 minute Direct where you talk about a few games as well? Or, like, that's one thing I want to ask you. The other thing is, do you just think, even if we don't get Switch 2 this month, do you think we get something this month? Because there are no games for February or March that haven't been talked about yet.
I've got wishful thinking version of me hoping that it's a Nintendo Direct and it's a 25-minute Nintendo Direct and they use, the first X amount of time to go over whatever last bit of brothership they want to show, Donkey Kong, Metroid, make it hot, something for next year. One surprise, first gameplay footage of Pokemon, a third-party game or two that we didn't know about, one port, kind of small, but a couple of ports, a little bit of a first few months of 2025. And then here's the wishful thinking that I laugh at because I'm like, dude, no way, it's too good to be true. The title of the Zelda movie thrown in there.
Let's
Oh.
go.
Like, or a poster with no actor in it, just a poster of Hyrule with the title, The Legend of Zelda:
Shadows of Courage.
And then what does it look like? But no Link, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or the
Yeah.
back of Link, but no actor reveal. And then
Yeah.
finally, without further ado, Nintendo Switch Freakin' 2. And it takes place that couple minutes.
Bro, that would be
I will say
insane
this.
direct ever. If they don't have the if they announce a Nintendo Direct, don't say it's like Spot Switch 2, but if they don't put in the replies that this presentation will have no mention of Switch successor. If they don't do that, we know, which
Oh
will be
my
insane because then it would be a hybrid direct. So, like, I don't think they're going to reveal the Switch 2 in a hybrid direct. Like, I think it's going to be its own presentation. Like, if it's a direct or not, we're going to know, like, with 100% certainty. But I'm telling you right now, if the Nintendo doesn't provide that little disclaimer, whatever they call it, I don't care if they I don't care if they call it the Nintendo Museum Direct 2. But if they call it that and they don't have the disclaimer because of how consistent they've been with the disclaimer, I'm gonna be like, yo, Switch 2 is gonna be in this somehow. It might just be on a shelf, but it's gonna be in this.
Yeah. and that is cool. I will say one more piece of now I haven't talked to anybody in a while, but one more piece of the puzzle where I still have hope for 2024 is the third-party aspect. And some third parties that I know that are on board, and when I gave that kind of it's looking like developers are more keen on Nintendo Switch 2 development than they were initially going into Nintendo Switch, based off of where Switch is to now and the Wii U was to then, and early look at dev kits and stuff like that, optimism being high.
Right.
That boded well to have something shown off this year from Nintendo, because it looks like certain third parties are ready or are already enough on board that it's not like I'm not getting the impression that right now somebody has it. I mean, a whole year ago is when I first heard of, hey, stuff is happening, you know what I mean? And then it just got corroborated by a couple of more partners. So, but it's up to Nintendo. Just because third parties may have games in development doesn't mean that Nintendo's ready to have them shown off, right?
Yeah,
probably certain third parties could have shown off at Gamescom, right? Probably some, if they were given the chance to, could drop on X right now. This game is coming to Nintendo's successor, or but they just can't. So I don't know if that really does help 2024's case, but that was part of the reasoning why, even though I'm on 2025 for kind of the sales thing, and I'm hoping it's 4, I'm gonna say 4 because of the third party angle.
Yeah.
But not super confidently. But it really switched when I was like, oh, this trailer thing, okay.
Yeah.
And then you can't help but hear that other people out there have also heard comparable things, of a trailer. I know Nate Drake, he said something along the lines of,
yeah, but he couldn't fully corroborate it because there was some other bit of info that hadn't
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but he has heard, and somebody else, if I'm not mistaken, I'm sure that there's more than just 2 of us. That I have seen other rumblings of people say something similar. So
it makes you feel a little bit better about it, but
it does.
I guess the thing is, like, what's scary though, right, is that we had so many people saying the Switch 2 was going to get revealed this past March, and then like days before we thought it would happen, Eurogamer, VGC, Bloomberg, well, actually no, Nintendo delayed it, right? And so there's always like this fear, like even if all the information is true, the tells me like, oh well, there's a hurricane, there was an earthquake, there was a tsunami, there was a flood. Mario is only running at 119 frames per second. We wanted to be at 120, so let's delay it another 6 months. Like there's obviously I'm kind of like exaggerating a little bit, but I feel like, but maybe not by that much. Like it's kind of like always like this little fear that they're gonna delay things and wait longer,
Mm.
but also they have to do things at some point. But the reason why I think there's going to be a direct instead of just a trailer is because if we're getting a trailer this month, I think that hard implies we're talking about like a March or April release, right? And if that's the case, then I think we actually need to get some proper details on the launch window games. Because if you look at Nintendo's bigger games, not something like MEO, right, that has a short window, but like something like a 3D Mario, a Smash Bros., a Splatoon, those kinds of games have at least like a 9-month reveal to release window, right? And I think in this case it would still be short, but it's better than 2 months, you know.
Right.
I kind of feel like, you know, having a direct where like, hey, so here's a trailer for the next 3D Mario. Like, if that's the launch title, or be it Mario Kart or whatever, there you go. I'll also tell you this. I think that while a Game Awards Switch 2 thing I think can happen, but I think it makes more sense for Nintendo to reveal the console before the Game Awards. And at the Game Awards, every third-party game that's going to be on Switch 2, they just have the logo in all their trailers. Right? People keep saying that. And then Nintendo maybe shows off 1 or 2 games that we already know about. They give us another look at Metroid Prime 4, which would probably fit really well with the audience. If and maybe 3D Mario. But I don't even... Like, if I had to pick one game that I think we see at the Game Awards, I just think it's Prime 4. Because it's not like that big, but it's also that fits really well with the audience.
And it's been a while since we've had another trailer for that. And it makes the most sense this year, other than at the Switch 2 reveal itself, to get another Metroid Prime 4 trailer, if we're going to get one this year.
Yeah, and maybe then people put on their most anticipated game lists, which might be kind of a good segue for our next topic. So I will check in with the super chat here, and then we'll move on. Unless there's something else you guys want to say. Boom Mini with the super chat here. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Boom Mini here says Polygon Network has accepted a mission of being shipped out to the Nintendo headquarters to demand they make an Ocarina of Time remake.
I'm on top of it.
You getting the pitchforks and the torches ready?
It's being worked on.
I packaged myself in one of the boxes that you saw me. If you did see me, I did a Hadouken. Well, maybe I shouldn't spoil it. Just go look at my Ken's afternoon Hadouken on YouTube.
Yeah.
I think I did a little skit. So in one of those boxes, I'm going to package myself up, set me off to Redmond,
so
Washington.
it's a stealth mission.
Yeah.
And say, hey, let's do Ocarina of Time remake.
Yeah. Guys, Paul's YouTube is in the description below, by the way.
Fun video.
Since we're on this subject, I'll just bring up, like, I've recently started using the phrasing reimagining as opposed to remake, but it's kind of I don't think it would be a reimagining like 7 remake either. I think it'd be somewhere in the middle where it wouldn't just be a visual overhaul. I think there would be some gameplay changes.
Yeah.
Because I think, one, I don't think it can be a full-on new Zelda game, because that would defeat the purpose of, you know, it's supposed to be a stopgap release, right? I don't expect this to be like a 100-hour experience. It's going to be essentially the length of what Ocarina of Time already is. Maybe a little bit more content. Maybe they find a way to add another dungeon, a few extra side quests, but like that would be it. Like there wouldn't be so much redone to the game. Like the game would still structurally be about the same. Like I could kind of see it, maybe them treating it almost like a little bit like Echoes of Wisdom, where they open up the game a little bit, right? Like, so you have to do the first dungeon regardless of the Deku Tree. That's like your tutorial dungeon. And then I don't know if this is optional. I have to go back and play Ocarina of Time, but it would be ideal if Jabu Jabu's Belly and the Doggo's Cavern were, you could do in either order, right? And then once you do that stuff,
you need bombs to get into Zora's domain, I believe, which you need from the Dodongo's Caverns.
So in theory, you could get the bombs, but you don't actually have to beat the dungeon. You could get the bombs and then go.
I believe that's true.
Interesting. Anyway, so like maybe just do there's already like some openness kind of already in Ocarina of Time in terms of like how you go about the dungeons. Like you could do the fire and water dungeons in either order. Same with like Spirit and Shadow. If they could just go back and like tweak that a little bit, I think that would be cool. But point is, I'm not expecting just a carbon copy. I'm expecting with just better visuals. I'm expecting some changes. Some. Call me crazy.
Call me crazier because I'm expecting more than that.
Yeah.
I'm expecting it to be closer to 7 Remake than you were saying. I expect there to be a lot of changes throughout the entire experience, including the level layouts and size of the areas and how things work.
That would be so cool.
I think a fundamental redesign of the game is in order, but maybe that's too ambitious. Maybe I'm off my rocker.
Yeah, could be. But let's move on because we have a lot of topics here to discuss. And this one I find interesting because I think it kind of speaks to the Metroid Prime situation. Oh, I didn't want it to work like that, but I guess
I've never even seen that. I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what do you think looks better as a topic? Like this,
that,
or does it like this? You think it just looks better this way? All right, well there you go. Anyway, excluding Metroid and Pokemon. So essentially, what's going on is the Golden Joystick Awards has put up the voting is now live to pick your most wanted game for 2025. But the thing is, it's not like you can just write in whatever you want. There's already a list. And the list does not include Metroid Prime 4. The list does not include Pokemon Legends ZA. There's not a single Nintendo game on the list, actually.
Interesting. And
it's not a small list. It's actually a pretty sizable list. I'm trying to pull it up here. I don't know where I left it. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I'm going to list off the games, right? Monster Hunter Wilds. That makes sense. Clear Obscure Expedition 33. Okay. Slay the Spire 2, which I think is an indie game. Ghosts of Yote. Yeah. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Hollow Knight Silk Song, which I don't even know if that has a release date. Skate. Doom the Dark Ages.
Man, next year's going to be great. Oh my gosh.
Deadlock. Death Stranding 2 on the Beach. Grand Theft Auto 6, which a lot of people think will get delayed, but I mean, here it is.
We'll see.
South of Midnight.
Not holding my breath.
I've seen South of Midnight. I don't know how you put that above Metroid, but whatever. Fable, Exodus, Mafia: The Old Country, Light No Fire. I think Light No Fire is hype. Sid Meier's Civilization 7, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows. So there are multiple. Listen, I'm not trying to slight or
that's
cast
a fantastic list.
It's a great list.
That's a really good list.
But this list includes games that are indie titles. This includes games that are coming from developers that haven't produced an 80-plus Metacritic score in years. And yet, Metroid Prime 4, coming from a studio that's the average is like 90-plus on Metacritic. Ridiculous. You know, it's coming from a series that historically wins awards at these Game Awards show, including the Golden Joystick with Metroid Dread. And then also Legends ZA won an award. Legends Arceus, and Legends ZA is also not here, and yet that's a sequel to the best-rated mainline Pokemon game of the generation, and also probably the best-selling, going to be one of the top best-selling games next year, without a doubt. Yet neither game is good enough to be in this list, but there are indie titles and just smaller things that it's just weird to me.
If their cutoff or the reasoning was everything else shown was shown for 2 minutes and 30 seconds worth of gameplay footage, and anything under that, which would be Metroid because it wasn't 2.5 minutes, or Pokemon, which has been 0 in terms of actual gameplay, it would have been fair. Okay, the indie games, the studios that haven't released an 85+ game, etc., but it was because they all had a decent size worth of gameplay shown to be fairly critiqued against or critiqued for saying, I want that, it would make sense. But that doesn't even apply because some of those games haven't been shown yet. or haven't had enough actual gameplay shown. Where
Some of these
Metroid
have a
Yeah.
limited amount
does
shown
have
as
more.
well. I just, I just think it's. Some people made the argument that it's a more so of that this show doesn't care about Eastern projects as much. So in general, like Japanese games don't get
Metroid
as
Prime
much
4 is
attention.
made by a Western studio.
Yeah, but it's a
more of a
Japanese
snub for-
IP.
It's more of a snub to Metroid than Pokemon, in my opinion, because
I
the
agree with
Pokemon
that.
one
Yeah.
we haven't seen gameplay.
You can't really anticipate what you don't know.
I mean, all right. So I agree that I can see why you don't include Pokemon, but I would also say that with Grand Theft Auto 6, if we hadn't seen anything,
yeah.
but they had told us it's coming out in 2025, it would still be in this list. If there wasn't a single lick of footage, but they had told us 2025, I would still say
That's
this
fair.
would be on this
Oh,
list.
that's
Because we
biased.
have
That's
seen
different
things like that
than that.
before.
And
What?
Hollow Knight Silk Song is also has not been seen since 2019.
Like, listen, every year feels like it's
Silk
got to be
Song,
the
huh?
year, right? Every year. And it may come out for sure next year. But we thought that this year. We thought that the year prior. So I just don't even know why it's in the
Yeah.
list. Does Silk Song just get to be a part of every most wanted games list for every Game Awards show for the entire generation until it comes
Guess
out
so.
in 2035? It's not going to take that long, right? But I just think it's a massive snub.
Yeah.
I quite frankly, I think it's insulting. I think Metroid Prime 4 probably is going to be rated higher than most of these games, save for one or two. And even then, it still might. Like, if Metroid Prime 4 matches the critical acclaim of the original Metroid Prime, it probably will be the highest rated game on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's no
Yeah.
guarantee it's going to be as good as the original Metroid Prime from a critical acclaim perspective, but it has that opportunity. It's not like a complete stretch to say that. So, it's probably less likely to happen. It's not the most probable outcome, but it's still a reasonably possible outcome. It's not like, 0.1% or something like that. It could happen. So I think it's weird, but, whatever. What are you going to do? Complain, which is what I'm doing. I'm complaining. I am making my opinion known that I think this is
Yes.
total BS.
Must speak up.
Yeah. That said, though, I feel strongly about this, right? But let's just take this opportunity to kind of speak on Metroid Prime 4, because I do think Metroid Prime 4, when it comes out, it is going to be in the conversation for one of the best games of the year. It's going to be a high quality game. I think it's going to be a significant evolution for the Metroid series, and perhaps with a little bit of revolution thrown in as well. I have high expectations for Prime 4. But where do you guys stand on this? Do you think Prime 4, am I spot on with this, or you guys have a slightly different opinion on the quality of Prime?
Spot on. I mean, I'm not on your podcast or your streams too often, but I feel like every time that I am, we share some kind of gush and some anticipation over Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. It's like, at this point in the modern era, maybe ever, it has some of the longest. It has been in development at Nintendo for the longest amount of time, and not just because of the first year and a half of development or so, from like March 2017 through October 2018. No, like even from that November 18 till now, it's been freaking 6 years. That's amazing. We heard about it in January, you know what I mean? But it probably started a little bit earlier, right? So that's why I'm just going with.
We assume, right?
November.
Yeah. We assume, yeah.
We assume that team, that care, being further motivated by saying, hey, we got Metroid Dread to sell over 3 million. It's their new bestseller. So that leads to more motivation, hey, Kirby actually did over 5 million. It's the new bestseller. Oh, cool. Pikmin 4. Oh, it actually topped Pikmin 3, Pikmin 2. Wow. Yeah. Luigi's Mansion, 10 million. Dude, Animal Crossing and Zelda, they're up here now. Like everything. So I think more and more proof in the pudding in that Nintendo wants the Metroid Prime 4 to be that. So you look at that, you look at the hirings, you look at who from Naughty Dog and who from Activision, all these big names that came to do this, and just look at how good the game looked when we saw it back in
Oh
June.
yeah.
And look at how fans reacted. Oh no, I am absolutely there setting myself up for satisfaction, delivering to my hype levels and then some with how good the game's going to be.
Yeah.
It's Metroid is a series that hasn't ever made, from Nintendo or first party, including Dread, a bad game. And even Metroid Other M is not a bad game. It doesn't have some good moments. It has some poor decisions, but it's still a okay game, a good game at the end of the day, I think.
I enjoyed it.
Federation Force, not what people wanted, but is it a bad game? 4 out of 10 territory? No, it's okay, kind of good, So
It's good enough that it might still should be in a most wanted games for next year list.
Definitely deserves it. Like, I would be surprised and disappointed if it's not at the Game Awards, at least in a most wanted, because like that's a group of audience that.
Bro, if it's not the Game Awards, I'm just gonna be shocked. We'll be complaining again.
More complaining. Yes.
Yeah.
You said it right. Like, if there's a game that Nintendo has that's not Nintendo Switch 2 itself, or by that time, like you said, announced ahead of time so that third parties can start saying, hey, this is coming, and this one that's coming out later will also be on Nintendo's. If none of that happens, at least Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I mean, and like with the snub that it just got, look at all the games that you mentioned. Which one had the most amount of YouTubers, content creators, and comment sections hyped up for the reaction video of it? I think Metroid Prime 4 is probably up there.
It's up there. Yeah. It's probably behind GTA 6.
Yeah, I mean, every game in existence is behind GTA 6.
But outside of GTA 6, Monster Hunter Wilds.
Yeah.
Maybe Doom.
Sales potential, maybe a bigger fan base, but in terms
not
of
hype, no.
The hype and the reactions, I mean,
it's a good game, but Metroid Prime, it's been such a long time since we've had a new entry, whereas Monster Hunter, they've been consistent. It's just, it's not the same.
I'm actually looking up the Monster Hunter Wilds reveal trailer. Like, I wonder how many views it has.
I'm sure it has a ton of views. The fan base for Monster Hunter is bigger than the fan base for Metroid. Just straight up.
Are you sure about that?
Nobody's arguing about that.
All right, so the Monster Hunter Wilds first trailer on the official Monster Hunter channel has 1.6 million views. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which has been a trailer that has not been out for as long. Now, obviously, the trailer has been replayed in different places, right? But that goes for both. On Nintendo of America, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond's announced the trailer has 1.9 million views in just 3 months. While Wilds was out for, I guess, 4 months, according to this trailer. So,
I mean, I still don't really think that as much about because obviously, if you look at the sales numbers,
I have no doubt. Monster Hunter is going to be a better selling game. I have no doubt. This is not at all what I'm.
But no, I agree. I agree that it's just not the same level of hype. Like, people have been waiting so long for Prime 4 specifically, like that game, like next to GTA, other than GTA 6, which obviously nobody can compete with that, pretty much in terms of hype. So, other than that, I'd say Metroid Prime 4 is probably one of the most anticipated games in amongst hardcore gaming fans in general.
Yeah. So it's been Jip. The game's gonna be amazing. I think we can move on. We still got a lot to talk about. So checking with the chat briefly here. Ronnie Fazio asked me, I don't normally keep track of the Golden Joystick Awards, but games like Black Myth Wukong only got 1 nomination and Celebrate didn't get anything. Those are that's it's kind of lame. Yeah, those are Those are good games. I
Seems
guess,
unjust.
but those are Eastern games, right? They're made by Eastern Studios. So that is there. Even though they have, I would say they both have a little bit of Western appeal, but it's very curious. Yeah, that does seem kind of like a bias towards that. So it may not be necessarily a Nintendo bias. It might just be, oh, this is made by a Japanese or Chinese studio or something like that. No, we're not gonna put it there, which seems wrong. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's
Yeah.
That's yikes for me.
So I'm now going to introduce this topic. But before you guys give up on this topic, hear me out. It's a bigger deal than you think, even if you do not care about Virtual Boy. If you hate Virtual Boy, if you could never hear about it again, this is still a big deal topic. Let me explain. The reason why it's a big deal, assuming you dislike Virtual Boy, which, come on, isn't that not even a little cool? But the reason why it's a big deal is because a leaker by the name of Nash Weedle is the person who provided this information that Nintendo was working on some sort of emulation on Switch for Virtual Boy. And this led to some speculation that it could be Virtual Boy coming to Nintendo Switch Online, but that wasn't specifically leaked, right? It was just said that they are working on some sort of Switch emulation for Virtual Boy. And we recently got word from an interview with Shigeru Miyamoto on the Nintendo Museum when they talk about a variety of things, including there being prototypes and things that they've never shown before, which is all really cool stuff. Miyamoto also talked about how they have Virtual Boy on display at the museum being emulated by a Nintendo Switch, which seems odd, but it does seem to confirm or at least support the idea of this leak by Nash Weedle. So there's a few different interpretations from this that can get really interesting. One, it might mean the leak is true, right? And if the leak is true, then that's another point of credibility towards Nash Weedle. So then we look back at the other things Nash Weedle has said, and no, not everything Nash Weedle has said in the past has come true, but other things have. More recently, the Mario and Luigi Brothership thing. He talked about there being a surprising Mario and Luigi game being announced for this fiscal year before the June Direct. And what I would say was a pretty hard game to predict, given that we already had 2 recent Mario RPGs. We got Brothership announced. And so it seems like, at least lately, there are things that Nash Weedle has said that it kind of seems like they might be coming from a source of knowledge. Again, there is a history to go further back when we was talking about like Breath of the Wild 2 stuff, like years back, that there was inaccuracies there. But it's also the same person that talked about Metroid Dread, like that there'd be a 2D game named Metroid Dread announced at E3 2021, and that was spot on, right? So you should definitely take it with a grain of salt regardless. But when we see something like this, it makes us think, oh, okay, could there be other things that Nash Weedle suggested that could be true? And 2 things I talked about in my video from yesterday is, one, he also talked about there being a Pikmin spinoff being announced next fiscal year. So could there be a Pikmin spinoff in the works? It might be kind of weird, but also might be the ideal game to have in the waning years of Switch 1, right? And then another leak that I think is worthy of note is that before others talked about enhanced backwards compatibility, Nash Weedle talked about there being backwards compatibility and used Bayonetta 3 as an example, that there might be an enhanced version of Bayonetta 3 made available for Switch 2. And then others started talking about it after the fact, right? So with this Virtual Boy leak, it makes me think, oh, okay, maybe these other things, maybe I can at least entertain the possibility. I shouldn't believe it 100%, right? But I think it gives me a little bit more reason to think, oh, okay, there might be something to this. So it's interesting from that perspective. But the other perspective is this is Nintendo emulating another game platform that they haven't released to the public yet. Because they actually emulated, if I'm not mistaken, both GameCube and Wii with Super Mario 3D All-Stars. At least one of those 2, with Sunshine and Galaxy.
I believe all 3 games were basically emulated.
That may be the case. I mean, we already have N64, right? So that's not really that crazy. Although, when did we get N64 announced? When was the expansion pack announced?
It was... I don't remember when, but it was definitely after that game.
I'm looking it up. I don't remember, but All right, so October 2021 is when the N64 expansion pack was released. And yeah, this 3D All-Stars was a 2020 game. So that's actually interesting, right? So we had an N64 emulator. We've seen that now used, right? Although it's different, but there was N64 emulation. Will there eventually be GameCube emulation? Will there eventually be Wii emulation and also Virtual Boy? Haven't seen those, but Nintendo technically is using Switch to emulate these games. Some of them.
Right.
So I find it interesting, and I mean, I personally would love it if we got to play Virtual Boy, because I never owned the Virtual Boy, and so there's like a selection of these interesting Nintendo titles that we've never played. Most of us have never played.
Is Virtual Boy officially on 3DS? Like,
Is it?
Like, it is. That's what I'm asking. Is it officially? Because
Oh,
I've seen people do it. I don't know if it's official though. That's the thing.
You know what?
Right?
I don't remember ever playing Virtual Boy on 3DS, but
because
maybe
I have seen people do it, and it's a really good experience. But I just don't know if that was because Nintendo released it or people are just doing that.
I googled it, and the first thing I see is play Virtual Boy on 3DS is awesome. Reddit/3DS piracy. So
I would have fun with it because I played Virtual Boy back in '95. My friend and I rented it, but that is the one Nintendo console that has come out, NES and on, that I don't own. Like, I don't have a color TV, unit either from Nintendo, but that's pre-NES. But anyhow, like, Virtual Boy would be pretty cool. And like Andres, you and I talked also, like, dude, hook it up on Nintendo Labo VR and make that as a possibility, and
it would look good with even with the original Switch's resolution. It look fine.
Way better than Virtual Boy's original resolution.
Yeah, kind of fun. And they could even, like, one of the things that excites me of these classic consoles coming back is the art and the time that gets put into recreating these old controllers. I love that I have an N64 controller that's wireless that was released a couple of years ago in my modern day entertainment cabinet, and that I have a Super Nintendo NES and a Sega Genesis one that's a Sega Genesis controller that on the back says Nintendo. Like, just it satisfies the kid me that, like, dude, you never have seen that, never have thought that would happen. So whether it's another tier, and like in this extra tier, it comes with Virtual Boy, Sega Dreamcast, and Nintendo GameCube, and it's X amount more. Like, whatever, I would do it. But the thought excites me also of the little Virtual Boy controller that would slide on into the Joy-Con slot, so you would have to play it in the old intended way. Although, to be fair, the controller was not attached to it. So, however they want to do it, like, I would play it if it was just on TV.
What if the Switch 2 gimmick is like there is a VR peripheral that launches early on, or like day one, side by side with Switch 2, and so with a VR peripheral available early on, they're like, hey, so you want to enjoy Virtual Boy? You can actually enjoy it with the 3D visuals, right here with the set. And here's what's actually interesting: we go back to the Nash Tweedle tweet about the Virtual Boy. They talked about there being a 2D and 3D version. So the 2D version you just play on your TV, right? But if there is a VR headset of some kind, like Labo, right, or if it's for Switch 2, something else, that would be a 3D version, which would be extremely interesting.
Oh yeah,
I think
sounds so
good. I think with you two, a year ago or a couple of years ago, it was one of the times that I was on and talking, and I shared the opinion of one thing: if they wanted to make sure that everybody who was interested in VR development knew that it's not just going to be a waste of time because nobody's going to buy this peripheral on the side, is include that cheap little plastic strap in every box, an extra $8 worth of plastic that is a little bit, nothing grand. It's just the Nintendo Switch 2 in portable mode with the Joy-Cons removed, in a little bit of a slider with a little bit of a headpiece that comes on, and you use the Joy-Con version 2.0s in your hands like this. So every Nintendo Switch 2 out of the box comes with VR support, and not something that developers have to worry about, like, oh man, yeah, there's 114 million install base. on this PS4, but only 3 million people bought the thing. 150 million Nintendo Switches, yeah, but only 1.5 million bought the Labo. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
if they included it, every box, cheap little $8, $12 piece of plastic, at least every developer knew, if I make it, it will get played.
Right.
Or
I
if I
think
make
that
a
would
mode,
be
everyone has access to it. I still am not
Right.
ruling that out completely. Not that I'm saying I think Nintendo's next big push is jumping into full VR, but it would be a way to help propel development forward by ensuring there's a truly large audience for it. Because you'll never
I
have
think-
a one-to-one ratio of a system bot and a peripheral bot for it.
right, but I think the
if they can
biggest
emulate-
issue.
You go. Sorry.
I feel like the biggest issue facing VR adoption is the price and the games. Like there just aren't enough games that people have to play. They're like, I have to play this, and I can only play it in VR. And there aren't a cheap enough jump in. So I feel like Nintendo, well, obviously the nuclear option of including some way to do VR from out of the box would be great. And it would be for if they want to do a big VR focus, I feel like that would be the best way to go. But if maybe they don't want to focus on VR as much, I think selling like something that's like max like $50 that you just put your Switch into and it turns it into better than Labo, like a much higher quality thing. So and it's not just like some cardboard, right? That could break. It's something that feels a little more professional, a little more nice, but is just really cheap. And then all of a sudden you have VR, and Nintendo has games, and I think Nintendo would need to have their own like first party offerings for the VR thing. And I think if they have those where they have the low entry price and they have Nintendo games that people are like, I gotta play this, and it's only in VR, then I feel like VR on Switch could be like, I feel like that's all it needs to be much more successful than the other VR platforms.
I actually haven't enjoyed Nintendo Labo, right? I've seen it, but through trailers and stuff, right? And so I'm kind of curious on how you guys feel, what you guys think of this or know of this. But I'm under the impression that in order to have 3D visuals, same way we have two eyes, you need two images, right? And the images can be merged to make it look like one for us, but it ultimately, like behind, the tech behind it is two images, right? And so if Nintendo releases Switch 2 and it's a tablet, it's one screen. And even if you have like maybe a slightly more premium looking thing than a Labo headset that they package in with, say it only costs like $10, so it's very easily something they can include in there, right? There's still just one screen. So you might have like a nice experience, but maybe it's not really a VR experience because it's not two
This is
images.
not really how it works.
Have you-
Because
that's
there's
why
still
I'm
two
asking.
images.
Okay,
So what they do is they split it down the middle, and they use lenses to grab the left side to your left eye, the right side.
So you
to
don't
your
actually
right
need
eye.
to implement like a screen with 3D technology or anything like
No.
that.
No.
So like the true bigger, better, higher quality 3D devices like Meta Quest and like PS5
Yeah.
VR2, like there are higher pieces of tech that do it differently, but like you could take your smartphone, put it into a similar contraption and like have 3D right there.
I mean, there's
Like-
basically Google Labo. They have like a
Yeah.
cardboard like headset for VR.
Yeah.
Try this, Andres, if you have, I mean, whether you want to try it now or later on. Go to Super Mario Odyssey and go to VR option and click A and see what happens on your screen. You'll see that there's two images side by side of like the Mario on the moon.
So is it basically just splitting the resolution?
Yeah, it requires more horsepower. Like
Because they're slightly different perspectives.
and then in Breath of the Wild, the same thing. But like for what it's worth, it's not as clear because it's a 720p screen.
Yeah.
It's not as clear because it's the lens that you're looking through into
Right.
it. And then the graphics are dumbed down a little bit beyond the normal 720p because it is requiring more horsepower to pull off these two rendered images. But you can play like there is something pretty darn cool about cumberness.
Going through Hyrule in 3D is great.
Man, it's kind of neat.
Maybe I should buy a Labo
Seeing the
VR.
full scale of the Breath of the Wild Hyrule is something else. Like the true scale of Hyrule is crazy.
Yeah. It wouldn't be as luxurious of a 3D experience as you could get in 2024, but it would help ensure that every Nintendo Switch 2 owner owns it. And maybe they could even
Right.
sell on the side, here is this other peripheral that is the proper VR thing. And that's the couple $100 thing. You know what I mean? But like it just gives you a better quality experience, but the games work on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not-
I
All right,
like
it's
my
happening,
idea.
bro. It's happening. Nah, Switch 2.
I do want
it's
them to
gonna
go with
come,
VR
it's
more
gonna come with
heavily.
it's gonna come with a little headset. It's not that expensive. It's kind of like, all right. Obviously, this is just make us having fun, but it
No,
does
it's
kind of
not.
make.
Someone's gonna say it was announced tonight. They're gonna say that
You promised us VR out of the box, you
they said
monster.
the VR is coming.
They said it.
Ah,
But
right.
so the thing, like, I was just thinking about like the Switch, right? The Switch box, right? There's like a lot of little things that come inside the Switch box. You have the Joy-Con grip, you have the 2 Joy-Con straps, you have the dock, you have the charger, and then you have the Switch. Like, there's a lot of little pieces, right? What if the Switch, what's interesting about the Switch 2, from what we've seen the prototype, they might not need those little grip things anymore. Because the buttons look bigger.
SLSR?
Yeah, the SL and SR buttons look a little bit bigger. They might not need something
yes.
like that. They might still want to have like a strap that they package in, but there might be a little bit of less plastic that they have to put in the box this time because of those bigger shoulder buttons, is the point I'm making. And maybe instead, the extra plastic we see is a plastic headset. You still have your Joy-Con grip. You still have, the dock, obviously, but there's also just another thing. If it's just a piece of plastic, like, it doesn't cost them that much more, right? Like, this is actually fairly conceivable. It's doable. Will they want to do it? I don't. But
I do feel like the cost margins on Switch 2 are already going to be like really tight. And Nintendo doesn't typically like to subsidize consoles, even though they definitely could.
Imagine saying on the box, VR out of the box.
True.
One more selling point. It's one more thing that differentiates itself.
Yeah, and I mean, they could. What if they have 2 SKUs? They have
VR SKU, the non-VR
at
SKU,
$399.99 with 256 gigabytes of internal storage, and then for I was gonna say ridiculous. I was gonna say $500, but for $450, it has 512 gigabytes of internal storage, and it has this cheap little plastic VR headset included. Now the problem with that is that defeats the purpose of having them all having that headset in every single Switch. So developers wouldn't.
I feel like that just kind of defeats the whole point. Then it's like, man, I want to get more storage, but now I have to pay for this VR thing I don't even want to.
I don't know. I'd be okay with it.
I do think Nintendo, just honestly, in my opinion, the most realistic thing for Nintendo to do with VR, which I do think they are going to do something, is to just release, like, maybe even it comes with a game like Labo, but it's more of a fleshed out experience and a more professional headset. But to sell something on the side, like the price for a full price game.
You ready?
And then
you ready?
Yeah, VR.
You know where I'm going with this?
I think
they have a premier Nintendo series that is used to pioneer this new VR peripheral. You don't need it, but you buy the game, and it's like one of those bigger boxes that has a headset within it, kind of like Ring Fit Adventure with like that, or or Donkey Kong 64 with the RAM expansion. But this one is Star Fox. Star Fox V freaking R. Come on,
actually be hype. Especially if they really lean into VR,
like
you
you're
control like individual parts of the R-Wing.
Left and right.
Oh, but let me do you one more. With the Joy-Cons, right? They actually use like the HD remote to make they make you feel like you're piloting inside the R-Wing.
Yeah.
Bro, this would. I'm writing a letter right now.
Writing
to
a letter
Nintendo.
To Nintendo.
Dear Nintendo, do this.
Dear Mr. Nintendo.
Oh, bro, come on! How cool would that be? That would be so freaking cool. All right, I'm gonna do you 1/3 double. I don't know what. Extra better. This is the
1/3
Switch 2
double.
launch
The
title.
super ultra better one.
This is it. They have Star Fox with a VR headset packaged inside the Switch 2 launch title. Not Nintendo Land, not Switch Sports, not Wii Sports or 1-2 terrible Switch. Star Fox. Okay, obviously, like that's probably not going to happen. But Star Fox VR, I don't know. I feel really good about that idea.
I do feel like that's a really good idea. Not for a launch game, because I feel like that would the precedent Nintendo would be setting
Wow.
for like what they want to do, like moving forward, would be crazy.
It's still
But
amazing if it has like if this is essentially the Star Fox of your dreams. If it's still like it's visually impressive. It has the typical campaign you want. It has online play. You know, it's everything you want in a Star Fox game, but it also has this optional VR setup that's awesome.
Imagine the games that they could have for this that actually work really well. Pikmin being on the ground level and looking around this world.
Seeing the scale of all the different objects in your little Pikmin army.
That's pretty cool.
God! What if you played as a Pikmin?
Yeah, that's what I
That's
thought.
Pikmin,
Yeah.
bro.
Like, you're there.
The Pikmin spin-off game,
Arms 2.
Oh,
dude.
Punch Out Revival.
2.
F-Zero with a fan in front of you.
You feel like when you see the sparks like
like a
flying
3D
in your
movie.
face. Oh, dude, just be so cool. Yeah.
I'm looking for something. Oh, I found it. I'm gonna.
Also, you get Virtual Boy on this though with this packed in headset for VR. Metro Prime 4 VR. You're right, Andrew Prime 15. Like Metro Prime 4 actually,
Dude.
yes.
Every game in VR,
Dude.
Please.
What like
VR mode for
Like-
everything. I love VR.
you know if you have to predict a gimmick for Switch 2, like if Nintendo's gonna do something like weird, like this is. I mean, if VR is not even that weird,
I feel like if anybody could make VR mainstream, Nintendo is the one to do it. Like they are the company that can make VR mainstream.
Yeah, included in a box, so it's guaranteed to be played. And if it's not,
I would
played
hope
that way,
that would be nice.
you could still play it the normal way, but it's there. Because nothing will ever sell 1-to-1. That's why, like, you know, if the expansion pack was if Nintendo went back in the day and said, you know what, we got to release new N64s. When did the expansion pack come out? 1999. It came out with Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah, it did.
So if November 1999 we released N64s from now on that have expansion packs included, Majora's Mask would have sold better. Perfect Dark would have sold better. Games that required it would have sold better. Now, how much better? I don't know, but I'm sure that they would have sold better. Because
Perfect Dark was semi-playable without the expansion pack, but you couldn't experience
play the
game.
single player. That
I
was
think
lost.
it was just like some of the multiplayer or something.
Some
was
multiplayer, not as many bots, and you could go around the Carrington Institute. But I think the main single player of the game, and that game was revolutionary. I mean, we're gonna go off topic, but counter co-op. Do you remember that? That was brilliant. Where player 1 was Joanna Dark, and player 2 picked up on different enemies in the game, and as you were an enemy amongst the midst, making your way to Joanna, and you got killed, you got brought back to life as another enemy. Like that was cool. That game's
Never heard of that. I didn't play Perfect Dark. I played GoldenEye as a kid.
Yeah, I didn't play the full version of Perfect Dark as a kid, but I would love them to bring that. Well,
I had the expansion pack. I just
Actually,
didn't have
isn't
the game.
Perfect Dark? What game did they add to NSO recently? Was it Perfect Dark? I think it was.
I think it's on us, so I don't know if it was recent or not.
Yeah, the adult version. I think it is. I want to say it's Perfect Dark. I think it is.
What's the most recent one?
Because I added 2 games to the adult app. I want to say.
PD was one. Turok was the other.
Oh, was it Turok?
Turok and Perfect Dark.
I need to check my Switch, but I don't have it with me.
Yeah, it was Perfect Dark, Turok, Zelda Fourth Sword Adventure, not Emerald.
Yeah, it was Perfect Dark.
It was Zero Mission, but it was those 4 games in June. Actually, dang, June? Wait, were there any N64 games between June and now? Because that's a long time. 4 months is quite a while without a game.
I don't recall seeing any.
I've the last NSO game I was playing was the Pokemon game, Mystery Dungeon, but that's Game Boy Advance. But in the interest of time, let's move on to kind of our final topic. There is something else I wanted to talk about that I forgot to list as a topic. There was that FCC filing for a device, and apparently it's like something close to 100 millimeter by 100 millimeter by 100 millimeter, like cube-like device that can connect to Wi-Fi and can sense motion. That's pretty much all we know about it. But because of the FCC filing, it pretty much means Nintendo has to announce it. Yep, maybe, but probably not. We're joking. Anyway, the point is it's like a cube-like device, and it's supposed, and because of the FCC filing, I believe this means it's probably going to be announced within less than 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. I think 180 days is the typical limit. I have to double check the stuff, but basically it's expected to be announced relatively soon. I don't think it has anything to do with Switch 2. I think it's just like a separate quality of life thing that we're going to randomly learn about somewhat soon. I don't know if you guys disagree or have any other thoughts on it, but I felt like I should mention it because it's something else that's happened recently that, since we're kind of going over the big stories as of late.
It's weird.
Yeah.
The utility, like, it doesn't seem very portable. This cube. Fairly large cube. Next to Wi-Fi, tracks motion.
It's too big to fit in your pocket, right? So it's not like a Pokemon Go companion app or anything like that. Yeah, I mean, it would be crazy, but actually, what if we're off, right? And it's actually a Pokeball that fits inside the cube, and it is it's literally a life-size shaped Pokeball, and it's a companion device for Pokemon Legends ZA. That's not at all what this is, but that would be wild. We have like a visual at the bottom. It's like a round, square, cubish thing. So, yeah. I predict that we're not going to care about it. Some people will. It'll be an interesting talking point for the day, but it's not going to change our lives. It might change some people's lives because it'll be a quality of life device. It might be like a sleep device or something.
Sleep device.
Except we already have one though for Pokemon.
We have Pokemon Sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pokemon Sleep.
Yeah, Pokemon Smile. I don't know if you've tried that. Pokemon Smile is the Pokemon teeth brushing.
Oh, I remember that though. Yeah. Did that actually come out?
Yeah, it came out, and it does a really good job in making your teeth brighter and cleaner than ever before.
Interesting.
You're really incentivized to brush well to get the Pokemon, so it works. Yeah. It works.
I had theorized that maybe the peripheral would be. Well, like when I say I theorized, I threw out like 12 different possibilities, and one of these 12 different possibilities is that it actually does connect to your Switch 2, and it's meant to help you understand your environment when you're playing VR, because when you're playing certain VR like games, there's like a room, right? You have like a certain space to walk in. That's not what this is.
But this tracks the motion of itself, though, right? Not other things.
Not entirely.
It's hard to. Well, judging on I don't know. It's hard to say. I guess maybe it does track other things. Maybe
I was under the
impression
I was under the impression it like registers movement around.
Around it or itself? This is a very different.
I don't know.
Because I feel like that's very, very important context. Like, does it track the movement of itself? Or
I saw a wave sensor. There was talk of a wave sensor. So
I don't know. The tech line wave sensors
helps with the spatial awareness and recognition between where your TV is and the Nintendo Switch user. In this case, if you're having some kind of AR play, or I mean, do we get too silly?
Fixed gyro drift.
It's a
Somehow.
projector. It's a projector device. It has full hologram capabilities that it shoots up, and we got this hologram area to play.
So what we
That'd be
know it
crazy.
has, right? It has a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi radio, presumably to connect to Wi-Fi, right?
Sure.
And then a 24 gigahertz wave sensor. So
I don't know what that means.
my interpretation of wave sensor was to measure movements around it.
Like it
I don't-
measures seismic waves. I don't.
That's right. It measures earthquakes.
Yes.
you
Yes. Earthquake detector.
Nintendo quality of life earthquake detector.
It detects whether you shake the ground it's sitting on with your jumping around. I don't know.
Fitness
Yeah.
related.
It could be.
Movement.
Yeah, it could be. I think it's probably is somehow fitness related. Yeah.
Mm.
Which, I'm pretty sure it's to measure movements around it. I don't think it's itself, because that would be dumb
Yeah,
to carry
this
around
is
a
like
cube.
a cube. That's why I was thinking like this doesn't
No,
seem.
I don't think that's what it is. Yeah. Anyway, I thought I should just at least mention it. Let's get to the final topic, and then we'll do some Q&A. We've talked about Xenoblade. We talked about the Nintendo Direct Switch 2 situation. We talked about the Pokemon stuff, the Virtual Boy leak stuff. We talked about Metroid Prime 4 egregiously being excluded from most wanted games of 2025 list. But now let's talk a little bit about Echoes of Wisdom. Because I want to finish this podcast soon, so I can play a little bit of this before I go to bed, so I can get close to finishing it. Game has been pretty good. I've seen some people say it's like it's better than Tears of the Kingdom. I think that's just kind of another way to subtly jab at Tears of the Kingdom. Because I think Tears of the Kingdom is an incredible game. But that said, Echoes of Wisdom is also an incredible game. I think it's a very good 2D top-down Zelda game. I really like what they've done with the formula. The structure of the game in terms of progression, I think, is really good. I love how I do want like a 3D Zelda to be more open than Echoes of Wisdom, but I do like the openness that they've introduced into Echoes. I think it's very cool. I will say I agree with the criticism of just how annoying it is to navigate your Echoes the more late game you get into. They need to find a way to, like, I love that there's so many options, but I just wish there was a better way to sift through it. And a lot of people have suggested to just have like a favorites option. I agree with that. Like, what if we could just hand pick our favorites option? Like, you still have the others, so you can still cycle through, but maybe one other option that you cycle through is your favorites, which you can actually be like, hey, these are the ones I'm always going to go back to.
Do you know how easy it would be? Shout outs to Perfect Dark. In GoldenEye 007, if you had 30 items, if there were 30 weapons, you had to go A, and maybe you could count. So if you could count fast, if you remember that, like, this one was 16 later.
Sure.
Boom, I got it. I switched the rockets from here, right? You know what I mean? Perfect Dark.
Easy.
Perfect Dark had the ability that you could cycle through A to go forward, or A and Z to go backwards, or if you held the A button down, everything popped up, and you could just select it. It was a grid of these 12 different things, and you could just go pop, pop, and click Super Dragon, pop, pop, and click this pistol, pop, pop, like that. So how easy would it have been if you hit right on the D-pad or right on the left Joy-Con right button, it opens it up, and then you're cycling through. But when you hit L, instead of doing the same thing, hold L, and it opens up a grid. And then you could categorize like this many here for traversing items in this quadrant for what's it called? Enemies that are flight based in this quadrant, your beefy attacks, and this other. And then you don't have to get rid of anything, but like you have your core, but that's the access point is hold down the button and then bloop, bloop. Beautiful. Yeah. And I'm shocked at the fact that they didn't have something like that. And I think for
I'm
that matter,
shocked they didn't have it in Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, they made the
Exactly.
same mistake in 2 Zelda games in a row, like the same.
Maybe they just
sort of
really
issue.
hardcore believe that this is the only way. Like this is
They
Must
didn't
be
ask
linear
in
line.
advance. That's why.
we just got to complain about it enough so they become aware. Because the
Nintendo,
Zelda team is pretty receptive to our criticisms.
do this L thing. Okay, bye. Just let them
You
know.
called up Aonuma.
Very believable.
That's what-
Yeah, I actually thought you were taking a phone call.
Yeah, you think the Nintendo ninjas don't watch this podcast? Huh.
They're
You know
watching
one of
now.
them's in here.
Every once in
That's a
while,
good
maybe.
idea. Hey, put this VR strap in the box.
In the
Okay.
box. Get it in there. We don't
Oh,
care
but we
about the
can't
price.
do it off October 10th now, right? That's okay.
Yeah.
That's
By the way,
wrong.
guys, we are wrapping up, right? So any final questions or points you want us to address now, put them in the chat while we kind of talk a little bit more about Echoes of Wisdom and wrap things up here.
Oh, yeah.
But Brandon, I believe you haven't had the chance to play it yet.
No.
So do you have any
I'm so
questions?
sad.
Do you have any questions about the game that you want us to, like, like as someone who hasn't played it yet, do you want to like ask us about this game?
One thing I'm curious about, because I do feel like the game has sort of a mixed identity, because it's very similar art. Well, I mean, the art style is exactly the same as why am I forgetting the name of the remake?
Link's
You know
Awakening.
the one. Yes, Link's Awakening, obviously. I'm curious, does this game feel like it has like a good identity to itself? Because also the music is very, like, I feel like from what I've heard, very kind of not as inspired as
Wrong.
previous Zelda themes. Like,
No, it's good.
coming up to like a
It's
Link
good
Between
music.
Worlds, I
I'm
was
telling you.
like
I'm telling you, no, the
absolutely
music is
obsessed. But all the tracks I've heard are very, very. They're just okay. They're just
good.
there.
I mean,
Which I feel like is a problem I have with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom as well.
nah,
with a lot of their
there
music.
are some tracks that I'm like, oh, this is really good. Like the town, Soothorn Village or whatever it's called, like that. The music in that town is magical. There's a certain point in the game where the overworld music changes and it's fire. Like I think the music's good, man. Like, am I gonna sit here and tell you it's the best Zelda music ever? I don't know about that, but I wouldn't say it's the worst. Like, it's par for the course, which is good. Yeah,
I don't
like
know. Maybe I just heard bad tracks. I don't know. Everyone I've ever heard, any music I've heard from any of the gameplay or trailers or reviews or anything I've heard of the game has been meh. Completely meh.
Flip. Nah, I wouldn't say. I that's not my impression. Like, I don't feel that way about it. See if I can pull up a track real quick here. Actually,
I like the music. For that matter, I love the game more than I thought I was going to. Not that I mean, I thought I was gonna love it because it's Zelda, but I'm enjoying it more than I thought. So very, very pleased with it. Haven't beaten it yet. I'm like 13 hours in. That's why I asked Andres, like, how many hours do you think you're in?
You trying
how
to
many
figure out how close
dungeons
you are to
have
the
you
end?
beaten?
Because I
How
don't
many
think I'm
dungeons
close.
have you beaten?
3 or 4.
Okay,
Three. No, probably 3.
I've done.
Wait, maybe 4.
I've done.
I have a feeling I'm pretty early-ish.
I've beaten 5, 6. I've beaten 6 dungeons.
Okay, so I'm probably
Yeah.
no more than halfway.
Yeah. All right. So let me see if I can play this track real quick. I'm not gonna play through all the songs right now. Just this one, because I think this one's good, and it's not a late game one, so I'm not spoiling anything here. This is like an early game track. How do I play it? Because I'm not sure if when I share, does it allow me to present the audio as well? And that I'm also share tab audio. Well, I mean that.
There you go.
That would make sense, right? Okay, let's send them a like. You hear that?
Yep.
Like, I like this track a lot. I left this on the other night,
fine.
and my cat was just like resting on my lap. Like it was just super relaxing.
I mean, it's a good song. I'm not gonna say it's not.
This is like a really like happy thing for me.
I wouldn't say it's like a song that I'm like, oh yeah, this is man, okay. So the music in this game is amazing, but it's definitely not a bad song.
Well, I don't know. I could continue to play tracks and try to prove
I
to you.
don't
To me,
think that's gonna
good.
be
Yeah.
the most
I
helpful.
also don't know how well the quality comes through by sharing.
Fine.
Yeah. But I think it's good. I guess Boo Mini, is Eternal Forest safe to play though? Is that spoilery?
I mean, it's just music.
Okay.
Well, I mean, is saying Eternal Forest a spoiler? Oh, now I know there's an Eternal Forest.
I don't know.
Like, I don't think the music can spoil it more than you already have spoiled the fact that it exists.
I haven't heard this yet. But I'm gonna play it real quick. Here we go. Sounds cool.
Reminds me of the Lost Woods in Breath of the Wild, but less spooky.
Whoa.
I do like the instrument choice. That like kind of flute, whatever it is, the woodwind of some sort.
I like the chorus.
Could be a pan flute, maybe.
Dude.
I don't know. The thing is, when I was like, when Link Between Worlds was coming out, I was obsessed with every single song because they would release the songs on YouTube for the game. I don't know why they did this, but there was a ton of music before the game came out, just online. You could go listen to it, and I feel like Zelda in general, like all the way up till Breath of the Wild, I would say, like every new generation of Zelda, whether it was 2D or 3D, had such an impact. Like I would get obsessed with the soundtrack. I'd be like, this is one of the best soundtracks in gaming, like every single time, and they would always be absolutely amazing. And I feel like ever since Breath of the Wild, Zelda music has been suitable, and that's it. And I don't like that, and I don't feel like the tracks you're playing are changing my mind in any sense, to be honest. I don't know. Maybe I'll feel different once I play the game. Haven't played the game, so these are just
there
two
are
tracks.
some good tracks,
but in general, I feel like Zelda.
I just don't. There are tracks I don't want to play
musically.
because of spoiler reasons. But at the same time, I'm gonna stop sharing this. I was playing and I'm trying to stop it. Yeah, I don't. I see where you're coming from, but I also kind of wonder how much is that nostalgia just kind of blinding you a little bit, and how much of that is like legitimate. I have the same thoughts, just to be clear, right? I'm not trying to sound condescending. Oh, you don't know what your own. I'm
Right.
not trying to say you don't know.
Obviously,
what your own
there is
are,
some nostalgia, especially for things like Ocarina of Time. Like that's huge nostalgia for me, obviously, yeah.
But like, I mean, yeah, like I would say that Forest Temple music is like in Ocarina of Time is like fire, right? But is that actually better than the music we just played now? We have memory.
I wouldn't say the Forest music is very. I would say it was one of the weaker tracks in Ocarina of Time, to be honest.
I mean, but then you have like the different. There are the Ocarina songs like for the temples, like the Bolero Fire, but they're like 7 to 8 seconds long. They're not long. They sound really good, but they don't last very long.
Yeah.
So they're not an entire track. They're just a little blip. in which case people wouldn't even count that, right? And then, but then you talk about like the Tears of the Kingdom closing credits. That is one of the most fire series of songs ever. But you only see it until you get to you only hear it till you get to the credits, right? So like you could say, oh, like Tears of the Kingdom doesn't have that music, but I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of a picking and choosing, right? Because some of the most fire songs from Ocarina of Time only last for brief seconds. So I understand where you're coming from. I'm not even necessarily disagreeing with you. I do think with Breath of the Wild, there was something lost.
I'm not even saying that they went a bad direction. I think that actually it works better in that sense for Breath of the Wild. I think it fits Breath of the Wild better the way that they went. Maybe they could have been a little more heavy. I think Tears of the Kingdom actually does a better job with the music. My main thing is going back to 2D Zelda, though. I expect the music to be very much exactly the same kind of thing we were getting before. So I'm curious if I feel like it will hold up.
But that is the case. Like, you know,
no, I know we are. I'm just
there is atmosphere, but there's also music at the same time. Like it's like if when you're in Hyrule Field, you do hear like sound effects, right, of the environment. But there's still music.
I understand the music works basically the way it was before. I'm just wondering if it's as good, because all the songs I've heard haven't been. So I'm just curious. But I'm sure there's banger songs in there as well.
Anyway, just to complete my thought, like I think there is something to what you're saying. There is a little bit of, you know, like for example, I don't love like the Breath of the Wild combat scene. Like it's okay, but like I kind of almost like sometimes would prefer something a little bit more hardcore, or at least maybe depending on the fight, it's a little bit more hardcore. Like the Lynel's music is actually pretty dope, right? So I think it depends. But I would say that there's some good tracks in Echoes of Wisdom. I don't think it's bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good to hear. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah. I don't know if you might feel the same way, right? Like based off what you're saying, but there are some tracks that I would say are just good. So, anyways, let's check from the chat real quick and let's close out. Boomini, the music is a goat. Boomini thinks it's goat.
All right.
This should pop. I agree with Brandon about Zelda OSTs. All right.
Haha.
The Ash Altar. Tears of the Kingdom music is music evolved. Oh. Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to say that Tears of the Kingdom doesn't like have a very good
fire tracks, dude. I mean, the opening for the podcast I think is great. Savvy Snake here says Zelda has generally gone more atmospheric, at least with Breath of the Wild, which can be beautiful but less memorable.
Yeah.
I will say there's actually a lot of really good tracks in Tears of the Kingdom, but they're not like they sound like, you know, you go like to Dragon Head Island, like it sounds good.
I'll say Hateno Village always been one of my favorites. Great place to go. Beautiful music.
But I do think there is a little bit of like sometimes the tracks are better for the environment as opposed to listening them outside of the game. So I do think there's a little bit of that. You're gonna have some good tracks though. I think there's at least be a couple. You're like, all right, I like it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't dislike either of the ones that you showed. They just weren't like, oh my gosh, yes, this definitely is the level I was expecting.
Yeah. I shared the music that Boom Mini suggested, I believe, but I want to just shout out the super chat itself. Thank you for the super chat, Boom Mini. Yeah, I like the game, dude. I think Echoes of Wisdom is a pretty good game. I think it's a great direction for 2D Zelda. And I think it bodes really well overall for the series because there is this marriage, right? Like they didn't forget about the prior. Like I don't think a lot of people had this fear that they were going to bring back a lot of prior Zelda tropes, but they've brought back a lot, and they just found a way to create something new. It's something new. Echoes of Wisdom is something new, but it also celebrates the history while kind of remixing it and also incorporating for the freedom element, which I think is now a hallmark of Zelda. Yeah.
I like it, and I like that I like it because I'm an old school Zelda fan who appreciated and grew up on the 2D games, and including
Right.
eventually Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and going into Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, etc. Well, that was pretty much it in terms of like 3D evolution.
Yeah.
But I love Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild and that dynamic became my new favorite game of all time. Finally dethroning Ocarina of Time after 20 years. But I'm glad that I still like this because it gives me some of that old feeling of
Mm.
the dungeons and how there are designated pieces of music for designated areas, but with the modern conventions of a little bit of a different world traversal and accessing things a little bit differently, and some of that Tears of the Kingdom kind of freedom. And I don't think they're going to use like a gimmick like create stuff in front of you in terms and for every Zelda game going forward. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a new neat hook in each Zelda game going forward.
Right.
Whatever that is exactly. Maybe it's more subtly thrown in there, but probably via some power up. I could see it, but I hope the game sells well, does well, hits at least 8 million, becoming the new best-selling 2D, well, 2D at least top-down Zelda game ever, and tells Nintendo like, oh, there's still room for the classic formula to satisfy that group of fans, and the bigger, more grand 3D masterpieces.
Oh, wait.
Not that this isn't a masterpiece. It is.
Should I share the images that you sent to me on Twitter?
Yeah, that's why I sent it. This is
my
so
brain.
we have exclusive. Andres has exclusive footage, exclusive pictures of Star Fox running on Nintendo Switch 2, and what you get in the pre-order. Did never before seen. I know I'm a little bit too much.
It's not clickbait because it's not on the headline. It's just view bait. Here we go.
This is collector's edition.
Oh, that's Paul
Oh,
in
my
an
gosh.
R-wing.
That's what you get when you pre-order the collector's edition of Nintendo Switch 2.
Oh my gosh. You're here first. Right?
Picture, yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the cube, by the way. That little screen in front, that's the cube. You stick the cube into your cockpit. Yeah. So I'm kidding, but I couldn't help but share with Andres and Brandon these photos of Star Fox Zero and the setup that Nintendo had at E3 2015. And I remember joking with the folks, covering the booth, and later on my friends at NOA, dang, is this a part of a collector's edition? Can I pre-order this? Because this is the way to play. Because that thing was rumbling with the music in it, and it was super cool.
Where's the $1,000 edition?
Set up your, swap out your couch and drop an R-Wing in there.
Oh yeah, it's just like a racing sim setup, but Star Fox sim setup.
It's really cool.
Star Fox with VR. That would be a game to.
I think that's the idea of the night, dude. That's the idea of the night.
It's so cool.
Yeah. But I think that is all for now. Is there anything else you guys want to mention or talk about before we call it a night? I think we did it. We had a lot. We covered a lot tonight. So yeah, this is just a calm before the storm. So hopefully the calm is not a long calm. Hopefully it's a short calm. But we'll see. Anyways, everyone, thank you so much for listening and watching. Make sure to check out Paul Gale. His socials are linked in the description below, as well as Brandon's Twitter. So check it out. It's in the description below. Thank you for all the likes. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.
There's one question.
Okay. You got one question?
Connor has one question. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you short, but I saw.
Here we go.
I have questions.
Connor,
do you really have one question?
I hope we finally get to see something Kirby from Hal, because what is Hal doing for Kirby this year? Hal's doing nothing for Kirby this year. I hope they're just focusing on Forgotten Land too.
Yeah.
But I bet we'll see something Kirby very soon. Could be one of the early games for next year. Yeah, I would say so.
Sorry for interrupting. I guess he says never mind now, so I'll let you.
No, we're good. We got the questions. Connor also brings up because they've been waiting for Kirby Triple Deluxe and Kirby Planet Robot on Switch, as well as Time About Your Life with the Metopia Mii Maker. I mean, Hal's usually pretty consistent. The fact that we haven't seen anything this year from them, I think bodes well for something fun definitely next year. And usually it's early in the year. So we'll see what happens. But with that said, I bid you all a wonderful evening, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.
See ya.